Welcome back to the FPL deadline stream, this time of Gameweek 22. It's another early one, so to speak, especially in the UK. But until the deadline at 11 AM in the UK, we'll be answering all your questions and comments and having you well prepared for Gameweek 22 and beyond. The double in Gameweek 24, a potential, well, it will be a blank in Gameweek 29. It just depends on which teams are going to blank, and I'll be covering that in this stream. The same goes for even further doubles further along the road, like Gameweek 33. So let's delve straight into your questions and comments. I've got 3 flag players in my 15-man squad and some slight adjustments since that team selection. I've put Semenyo in for Sarr in my starting 11. I've got a sneaky suspicion that Ismaila Sarr could be on the bench against West Ham, but he was spotted in training, as I'll show you fairly soon. The captaincy hasn't really changed for me. It was always between Salah and Palmer, and I had Salah as my captain in my team selection, and I'll most likely stick, especially after Enzo Maresca's updates yesterday on Enzo Fernandez, Lavia, Colwill, and Cole Palmer himself. But let's get straight into your comments as always. Drop a like if you enjoy the content or find it useful, and keep your eyes peeled for UCL fantasy videos across the weekend and going into the Monday. And of course, on Tuesday, there will be a deadline stream for match day 7. Jaron says start 4, Gavardio, Akanji, 8, Nuri, Botman, Burn, and Timber. Fairly difficult one. You've got 2 Newcastle defenders. They've been brilliant recently, but they are facing a very solid Bournemouth side who could cause problems. And actually, if you look at Eddie Howe's record against Iraola and also against Bournemouth in general, it's not particularly great. I would go for Gavardio, Timber, Dan Burn, and I think I'd go for Akanji, but I'm not that confident of a Man City clean sheet. Start 3, Harry Wilson, Wissa, Solanke, Gakpo. Extremely difficult one. Harry Wilson's a nice differential this week against Leicester. Yeah, I'd start him. Fairly difficult though. I mean, who do you bench from those 4? Great question. Wissa's got the toughest game on paper. I'd arguably bench Wissa, which is very difficult to say. He's got a home game. It's between him and Harry Wilson, and I would favour that Leicester fixture right now. Easy99 says, disappointed, 46 points last game week, transfer out Colwill to Mikalenko for preparation for double game week 24. That has crossed my mind myself. I think my defensive line is the biggest weak link in game week 22, especially if Levi Colwill were to miss out. And he is pretty much a transfer waiting to happen anyway. I was also looking at Nico Williams. The problem I've got with him is against Southampton, I don't think Forest will rotate heavily, but if there was a position or two where they could make a change, I think Alex Moreno in for Nico Williams is a possibility. If I knew for sure Williams starts, I might just take the plunge, go for him, and kind of hope for the best with a clean sheet, which is likely on paper. But yeah, you did fairly well the week beforehand, so look, it's going to happen in FPL. You're going to have some ups and downs, but you're still on the right track. James123 says, hello Dylan, start Semenyo or Pedro? Very difficult one. Joao Pedro's got a good record against Man United, and with Danny Welbeck back, I think that's going to really help him. He might be playing deeper, but I don't think that's actually to his detriment FPL-wise. I'd actually start Joao Pedro. Cylindra says, hey Dylan, got 2 free transfers. Which is the best option? Number 1, should I start Joao Pedro or Rodgers against my double Arsenal defence? Or sell Joao Pedro to Gakpo, since I only own 1 Liverpool player? The second option is to sell Raya to Pickford, Alisson sells. And number 3, roll the transfer to free and not make any changes. I'm in a similar position to you. I think my preference will be starting Joao Pedro. And if you want to buy Gakpo, you can do it next week against Ipswich Town. Now look, against Brentford away, Gakpo should start. And I also think he's got a decent chance of a return. Brentford concede so many chances and 21 goals shipped in at the G-Tech Community Stadium. I think number 1 is probably the best option for you, and I'd start Joao Pedro. Football fan says, -4 for Gordon. I have Salah, Rodgers, Iwobi, Fernandez, Palmer. Look, Iwobi did really well last week, but it was very fortuitous. Both goals he scored, they were essentially crosses. I think Rodgers is a nice long-term hold. You might bench him against Arsenal, but I actually see him as one of the threats against the Gunners. Bruno Fernandes, he's a good purchase. I just think Amad Diallo offers better value, and Fernandes has been hit or miss this season, that's for sure. Palmer is going nowhere. Despite the yellow flag this week, I still think he starts. But yeah, I think if you were to make that sort of move for Gordon, it would be for Iwobi. The thing is, he is facing Leicester City this week. Gordon faces Bournemouth. So you could wait until Game Week 23, and if you really want Gordon, You buy him in for Southampton away. And despite the fact he's returned in his last 2 games against Bournemouth, including a 10-point in the reverse fixture this season, I wouldn't be surprised if Gordon blanks this week. I'm not going to lie. I'm still looking to buy him in because he's been brilliant in the last couple of weeks, and I've been talking about him time after time, and I haven't been able to pull the trigger myself. But I probably would wait with what you have for now. And if you still want Gordon in Game Week 23, I'd sell Iwobi. Gordon or Ahmad? I still think Gordon is a much better option long term, but Ahmad has 1 more FPL point this season, which is crazy. He's offering fantastic value. Since he has started matches since, Game Week 11, he's been really impressive. I think only Isak, Palmer and Salah have scored more points. Sell Pedro for Jimenez? I'm not so sure if I'd do that. I mean, Leicester away is a great proposition for Jimenez. There is a slight chance he doesn't start, which to be fair has been said so many times by him this season, and he still gets the nod. But I think I'd keep Joao Pedro for now. He's not a terrible option against Man United, I have to say that. Even for Watford, he scored against United before. So Easy99 puts his team. Sells Hall, Mazraoui, Gvardiol, Murphy, Salah captain, Enzo, Palmer, Visser, Wood, Haaland, bench, Jose Sarr, Kirkes, Damsgaard, Mikalenko. Yeah, fairly solid. Buy Mikalenko for Colwill isn't going to help you this week, and maybe not in Game Week 23, but it sets you well up for the double. And Mikalenko's a decent 5th defender to have, even as a 4th option, so that's fine. JP says, hi mate, start 2 of Hall. Sorry, I just lost your question. Let me go back to it. Keep on plugging away the likes. Thank you to those that have done so already. And check out all the links in the description for my Twitter and Instagram. Also my Blue Sky. Just type in FPL Dylan or Dylan RCM and you can find me across all social media platforms. There's also my Discord server, which is a great community to be a part of. There's also my FPL League, Drafthound, Spotify, and much more. So JP says, start 2 of Hall, Robinson, Ahmad. I have Gabriel, Milenkovic as my other starting defenders. Difficult one. Robinson, I think, would take the nod over the 2. I'd actually go for Lewis Hall over Ahmad, but I'm not entirely confident of a Newcastle clean sheet. I just think Lewis Hall has been brilliant. He's got so many different avenues to points. But yeah, to bench Ahmad after 9 points against Liverpool and a hat-trick against Southampton, it's difficult to do, right? That could be the wrong call. You know, I'm actually going to go for Robinson and Ahmad here. I think Bournemouth score against Newcastle. Insane Gamer 7 says, hi Dylan, bench Hall or Trent? I think both Liverpool and Newcastle concede, but I also see Brentford as a better opposition in terms of FPL assets compared to Bournemouth. I'd probably start Trent. Trenix says, hi Dylan, bench Colwill or Joao Pedro? I'd bench Colwill. Play Joao Pedro or Rogers, says Greenia. Joao Pedro. Richard Milichip says, hey Dylan, I have Palmer, Cunha and Sarr all yellow flag from my starting 11. Rogers, Munoz and Harwood Bellis on the bench. Is it worth a -4 for Palmer and Cunha to Haaland and a 5.1 million midfielder, or roll the free transfer? For this week, buying Haaland looks great, but then look at the fixtures afterwards. You've got Arsenal on the horizon in Game Week 24. I know Chelsea isn't a terrible fixture for Man City, at least for their attackers, but I would probably just keep what you have. I think Palmer is still the better option than Haaland long term. And actually, a lot of Haaland owners are looking to sell him next week or the week after. So I'd keep what you have, to be fair. I think Palmer will start. Matheus Cunha is ill. That's why he's a doubt, but I think he should be fine. Sarr's hamstring problem isn't major. It was described as a small issue by Oliver Glasner. He might not start this weekend, so that's a potential issue. But I think having Rogers off your bench, even Munoz, is absolutely fine. I wouldn't take the hit. Thank you, Eddie. Who's the best captain? Ahmad, Salah, Palmer, Wood. I'm stuck on that. The rest of the team is grand. Look, Chris Wood has the best fixture this week, but he hasn't had that many double-digit hauls. Look at Salah on, I can't even count off the top of my head, I think 5 or 6 occasions where he hasn't got 10-plus points in a single game week. Cole Palmer is yellow flagged, and even before that, I was slightly leaning towards Salah anyway. Amad Diallo did brilliant against Southampton, but Brighton is a different kettle of fish. I'd go for Salah personally, but if you want to go a little bit different and you want to be really risky, maybe Cole Palmer is the play. It's a bit like Isak last week when he was yellow flagged, and of course the rest is history, but it'd be Salah for me. Bench 1, Murphy, Gordon, Sarr, Joao Pedro. I'd bench Ismaila Sarr at this moment in time. Now, if we got confirmation he starts, maybe I'd change my mind slightly, but that would be my current preference. Yusuf says, I have Fabianski and Henderson. Should I sell one for Sells or Pickford or hold and save my money for the assistant manager chip? If so, which to start? Yeah, I'm not particularly fond of either option this week. I think West Ham have got that slight managerial bounce. They took the lead against Aston Villa in the FA Cup, gave them a good game, especially in the first half. Then they beat Fulham 3-2, who are unbeaten in 9 Premier League games. I'd probably just stick with Henderson, start him for now. You can always buy Pickford ahead of Gameweek 24. And I think the best time to buy Pickford is actually for that double, not beforehand when they face Tottenham and Brighton. As for Sells, great option this week. The fixtures afterwards are quite mixed bag though, and around Gameweek 27 they've got a fairly tough run. At least the Man City and Arsenal games are at home, but that's one of the reasons why I haven't made that goalkeeper transfer yet to fund Gordon in for Ismaila Sarr. Eddie says who to have first sub, Mazraoui or Rodgers? Rodgers. I don't see Man United keeping a clean sheet against Brighton, and I think Rodgers is one of the biggest threats that Arsenal will have to face today. Welcome, Reese. Good to see you. I'm probably very far behind in the chat, by the way, but trying to get through all the questions and comments. Let's whiz through these. Ali says, Eddie, I'm stuck between Wood and Isak. Yeah, I'd go for Isak personally. That would be my preference. I'll show you my FPL challenge team fairly soon. The same goes for different screens, which shows you updates. There are rumours of Saliba potentially missing out for Arsenal. They aren't concrete rumours, at least I don't think so. I haven't really heard about these sources before, but it's something worth bearing in mind. No Name says for challenge, the strategy seems to be target Southampton as much as possible. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I kind of failed with that because I went for Onana in goal and I went for Bruno Fernandes. But yeah, for those that went for Ahmad, obviously really well played, both in FPL Challenge and normal Fantasy Premier League. So this game week, I try to fit in as much Forest as I could. Same here, especially with the challenge this week of restricted budget. El Parcero del Fantasy puts his team, 2 free transfers, 2.1 million in the bank, thinking of doing Sarr to Gordon. Yeah, if you can do that directly, I'd have no hesitation about pulling the trigger. It's more difficult in my situation. I've got to make a downgrade elsewhere, and I really just should have bought Gordon a few weeks ago. That was a mistake of mine. But yeah, I'd pull the trigger. Just be mindful about transfers you might want to make for Double Gameweek 24. So you've got Trent and Salah already. You might be looking at Gakpo in the double, or maybe having enough money to buy Arne Slot if you want to use the assistant manager chip. That's a possibility. And then buying Pickford for Raya. I think you can make those sort of moves whilst also buying Gordon, but it will make it more difficult, especially with Arne Slot, because you need 1.5 million in the bank to buy him in. So that's going to be something you have to weigh up, and I don't know what your chip strategy is. So yeah, Chris Wood as captain, I covered this briefly before. I probably wouldn't go there. I think he's a good option, probably in the top 5, and I can see him scoring and getting maximum bonus points, but in terms of a high ceiling, I think Salah, Palmer, and potentially Isak have even higher ceilings this week, but maybe Isak's debatable because against Bournemouth, I think he's got 1 goal in 3 games against them. He's only played them once at home, to be fair, and he scored. Yeah, I think Chris Wood should be up there, but don't expect massive horse room like a brace or a hat-trick. This is a great fixture for him, but I don't think it's a guaranteed mega haul like some people are anticipating. So, welcome Lager, Ali, and Reese. Good to see you all. Let's get back to the recent questions. Some of these have been answered, of course. And yeah, the chat is frozen. Hopefully that's nothing too sinister. Arthur says, hi Dylan, got 9 points of Ahmad captain and got a sense of motivation to put more effort in. Yeah, nice one. Obviously you are a Man United fan. That must be like a double euphoria, so to speak. But yeah, Amad Diallo's a top talent. His potential is through the roof, and he's been Man United's best player this season for sure. Start in Boomer or in Die? In Boomer. Hey Dylan, hope you're doing well today. What are your predictions for this week? Hopefully you're doing well too. I'll go through my predictions. You know what? I'll do it now whilst going for different screens. So let's I'll go back to this at the end, especially if we hit a super chat goal of 5 and we have a longer live stream today. And keep your eyes peeled. There could be a reaction stream later tonight, and I'll try to record UCL fantasy videos tomorrow in preparation for the Tuesday deadline in match day 7. So Newcastle versus Bournemouth, I'm kind of torn between this. I could see Bournemouth getting a draw, but a 2-1 Newcastle win is also kind of crossing my mind. I'll stick with that for now. I think Newcastle are the better team, but yeah, it's really just the home advantage thing. And I think Bournemouth will put up a really good fight. Their injuries might cost them a little bit. Of course, Chelsea nearly got the 3 points against them. Brentford versus Liverpool, 3-1 Liverpool. I'm more confident about this one. Leicester versus Fulham. Fulham are a bit iffy against the worst teams, and Leicester have been terrible in the last couple of weeks in terms of results and performances. They've scored 2 goals in the last 4 matches. I would probably go for Leicester 1, Fulham 2. West Ham versus Crystal Palace. Yeah, 3-2 is crossing my mind. Of course, that was their result last week for West Ham. Difficult one. I mean, Palace are actually unbeaten, I think in 9 away games, if I'm not mistaken. I need to double check that. So they're fairly decent on their travels. I'm going to go for a 2-2 at the moment, but West Ham would have a slight preference for me with the home advantage and also the Graham Potter factor. Arsenal versus Aston Villa. I think Arsenal will drop points. I hope that's not the case, but I do think Aston Villa, they're in decent form themselves, and if Arsenal don't take their chances, it could be worse than a draw. It could be an Aston Villa win. So it could be a repeat of April last season, when Arsenal dominated the first half, they missed some glorious chances, and then Aston Villa were clinical in the last 15 minutes of the game. I'm going to go for 1-1. Yeah, Arsenal should have some signings by now. They should have some forwards, and you know, they've essentially out of 2 cup competitions already. I mean, Newcastle are very likely going through to the Carabao Cup final, which means they will blank in Gameweek 29. Yeah, I'm going to go for 1-1 at the moment. Everton versus Spurs. Everton are winless in 6 games. In comes Dr. Tottenham, you could say. Difficult one. If it was at Spurs' ground, I'm very confident of a Spurs win, but well, I'll be honest, it could be looking quite grim for Spurs and Ange Postecoglou. They could go down to 15th this weekend if results go against them. And that's basically with Crystal Palace mainly. And if Everton beat them, it's looking really grim. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw at the moment. Man United, Brighton. I'm looking at a lot of draws this week. Maybe I'm overthinking this, but yeah. 2-2, Man United, Brighton. Nottingham Forest, Southampton, 2-0 Forest. Ipswich Town, Man City. It would not surprise me if Ipswich Town get a draw. And to be honest, this is a great chance for them to get a win over City, because it's not going to happen in years to come, really. So, yeah, I'll go for Ipswich Town 2, Man City 4. Something a bit wild. And then Chelsea Wolves. A lot depends, of course, on the injuries. Is Cunha starting? What about Colwill, Enzo Fernandez, Lavia and Palmer? But assuming that Palmer starts, which is my prediction, and even Cunha, I'm going to go for a narrow Chelsea win, 2-1. They've got a fairly shaky record against Wolves in the last couple. At least they've shipped in a lot of goals, and last season they lost both matches against them. But I'll go back to that later on. Also, quick shout out to those in the FPL Dylan League. There is a link in the description. The top 2 in this league are actually in the top 7 worldwide. So big up to everyone who has joined. And we've got some pretty decent performers, so to speak, in this league. So be sure to join if you haven't already. Your points from Gameweek 1 will count, so don't worry about that. Let's now head over to the FDR, and Fulham are still top with Spurs, Everton, Liverpool, and Man United in the top 5. And there could be a double in Gameweek 25, of course, but yeah, that all depends on the Carabao Cup final, and I personally think Liverpool will reach it rather than Spurs. If you look at the bottom 5, though, Wolves, Man City, Ipswich Town, Newcastle, and Leicester are pretty much down there. You've got some decent teams like Arsenal, Chelsea, almost near the top, but not quite there. Let's go to the predicted points. Salah is top with 7.8. Haaland is second. Then we've got Isak, Palmer, who I think has gone down because of the yellow flag. Chris Wood, Ahmad, De Bruyne, Foden, Fernandes, and Jackson in the top 10. I think Jackson is kind of an awkward one, and I could see myself selling him to Gakpo in Gameweek 23. And if it wasn't for that fixture this week against Wolves, I mean, I would have probably pulled the trigger already. As for the potential price changes, this might need a refresh, but livefpl.net can be very reliable. I checked this later on today, though. Maybe if we have a reaction stream tonight, I can show the updated versions, which will be very reliable. But they've currently got Chris Wood, Ahmad, Isak, Gordon, Aina, Savio, Elanga, Foden, Sells, Jimenez projected to rise tonight. The same goes for Hall and Nico Williams. I have to say, if I did get confirmation about him starting, I might go for him for Colwill. and then buy Gordon for Sarr and bench Semenyo, which looks really good for this week, but it doesn't put me in a great position transfers-wise for Double Gameweek 24. As for potential price drops, Enzo Fernandez, Ismaila Sarr, Cunha, Saliba, Jackson, Lewis, Kluivert, Timber, Collins, Brennan Johnson. There's a lot of players in here. Neto, Diaz, Garnacho, Strand Larson, Watkins, Dean. Yeah, but I would expect some of these to not go down in price and also to rise. I think once we get to, I don't know, let's say by the reaction stream tonight, if there is one, yeah, it will look a lot different. So these are the kind of news that I was talking about. So Saliba was not spotted in any training pictures yesterday and was seen with a slight hamstring issue near the end of the Tottenham Hotspur game. So that's something to monitor. I think he had a run directly into the midfield, and afterwards he was kind of looking to the bench and it didn't look great. That's something I did check out after. So that is slightly concerning, and there are some reports yesterday indicating that Saliba is out, so let's see how reliable they are. And Ismaila Sarr was spotted in training, so that is obviously very encouraging for Crystal Palace fans and also those that own him in FPL, but he is still on the chopping block for me, and it was a mistake buying him over Anthony Gordon. I mean, part of the reasoning for that was to also have enough money to buy Arne Slot or Trent Alexander-Arnold for the double game week. So if I do buy Gordon now for Sarr, it just makes that even more difficult. And I lost out on all the points from Gordon already, which, yeah, it's just a mistake of mine. I did put out several polls though, and let me actually refresh this to get more updated versions, more votes in. So I did ask you the other day, pick a goalkeeper from Game Week 22 onwards, and despite Pickford doubling in Game Week 24, Sells is just winning by a landslide with 77%. He has been the best goalkeeper this season, but Pickford isn't that far behind, in my opinion. Next up is which midfielder would you rather sell? And it's been neck and neck all week, but Sarr has slightly more votes, so it looks like Semenyo is a slight preference for some of you. Then there's this, which is in relation to my transfer plans, and the alternative for me is to roll. But Raya and Sarr to Sells and Gordon is what I discussed in the team selection video. Then Colwill and Sarr to Williams and Gordon. And I think in relation to my team, that could be the best option, assuming that Williams starts. And then finally, Colwill and Sarr to Van Dijk, and then Rodgers or Amad Diallo. But that is last in the votes. As for the captaincy, this was actually created before the Palmer injury doubt, and Palmer was leading the vote, but he has gone down to second now. Salah is leading the pack. I'm a bit gutted about that. I think, I wouldn't say Salah would have been a differential captain, but he would have got more gains, let's put it that way, if Palmer didn't get yellow flagged. Isak is third and Haaland is last, but there's a lot of different kind of captaincy options flying around like Amad Diallo and Chris Wood. Finally, this is about the double game week, and let's get some more votes in. So let's see what people are saying. Pick your favourite Liverpool asset for double game week 24. I think Salah and Trent will be the standouts. So out of these, to maybe triple up on them, Gakpo is first, Arne Slot is second, then you've got Konate and Van Dijk. I think if funds are no issue, I would invest in Van Dijk over Konate. No risk of rotation. You've also got more goal threat. And Van Dijk loves a double game week, which might not be the greatest kind of thought process, but it's something that should be factored in, I think, when making your double or triple ups in Liverpool. As for Drafthound, they are still recommending the same thing. Gabriel and Jackson to Trent and Gakpo. I think that's very solid for Game Week 24, actually, and it has crossed my mind this week too. Gabriel and Mbumo to Hall and Foden. And they've got so many more suggestions, which includes Vandenberg to Trent, and then Jackson downgraded to somebody like Raul Jimenez. Let's go to the stats comparison of Chris Wood versus Isak, who will be very popular for the captaincy and transfers this week. Chris Wood has the better fixture, but his stats pale in comparison to Isak. Big chances, though, is actually quite decent for Chris Wood. When he does get chances, they tend to be pretty big ones, as he is the talismanic figure for Nottingham Forest. But you look at the goals and the assists, Isak, of course, is now leading in both with that tremendous run over the last 9 matches, and he could break the all-time Premier League record set by Jamie Vardy, scoring in 11 consecutive Premier League games. So I have to say, for the captaincy, I'd still favour Isak slightly, but Bournemouth is a very difficult game, and if there was any match where Isak could maybe falter in quest for that record, I think it's Bournemouth, to be quite honest with you. Now, with fpl.team, if I can do this quite quickly, I wanted to show you a comparison of what my team would look like if I roll compared to making 2 free transfers, which would likely be Sells and Gordon. So by rolling, I could have something like this. Maybe I start Semenyo over Ismaila Sarr. The expected points is quite high, But despite the yellow flags that have been registered on fpl.team, it's still not really factored in too much of the predicted points. It looks like Colwill and Sarr are still predicted to start according to this algorithm, so that's something that needs to be weighed up. If worse comes to worse, and I have to have Veltman in the starting 11 and Semenyo over Sarr, the expected points does drop to 61.1. Not to mention Cole Palmer, if he were to miss out as well, worst case scenario, I'd have Vandenberg facing Liverpool at home, which is just terrible to say the least. Compare that to this, where I would have Gordon and Sells, and the expected points is higher at 65.3, but it's not just about Gimmick 22, it's about the future as well. So in Gimmick 23, by buying Gordon and Sells, I would have this sort of setup. I could even roll in Gimmick 23 theoretically, but I do miss out on that second or third Liverpool player against Ipswich Town, which might be a missed opportunity. I could bench Jackson in Gimmick 23, for example, and then in Gimmick 24, I can still buy Trent and Gakpo, by the way, or I could even look elsewhere in terms of, instead of Trent, buy Mikalenko and then buy Arne Slot, use the assistant manager chip and activate it for Gimmick 24. So there are different ways of playing this, and that's something I need to weigh up. Do I want to triple up on Liverpool with players, or do I want to use that chip with Arne Slot? And if we compare that to rolling the transfer, in Gimmick 23, my team would look like something like this, 63.3 predicted points, and it's not too different really, but Gakpo would look fairly solid against Ipswich Town. And then for Gimmick 24, yeah, the expected points is higher because I can also buy Mikalenko and Pickford and have 5 doublers essentially. Even if I don't buy Trent, like I mentioned before, I can go even cheaper here, even go for Lewis Hall, and then get Arne Slot as my assistant manager. So I do think on the face of it, rolling the transfer this week might cause me some pain in Gimmick 22, but set me up better for Gimmick 23 and 24, and potentially even beyond that. So let me know your thoughts in the live chat. What do you prefer? I'll probably put a poll out fairly soon because I want to lock in my team and not think about it too much. I've been prone to overthinking this season, and it has resulted in some disasters, also some 50-50 calls going the other way, and I'd rather avoid that completely. And for those that have been asking, before I go back to your questions, as always, FPL Challenge, this is what I've gone for. Sells, Castagna, Milenkovic, Elanga, and Raul Jimenez. This leaves me with nothing in the bank, and I was thinking about Jacob Murphy instead of Elanga, and then going for Nico Williams for Castagna, and tripling up on that Nottingham Forest defence against Southampton. Jimenez is currently my captain, but I might change that to Elanga. It's just very difficult to fit in Chris Wood, let alone the big premiums. That's pretty much impossible here, unless you cheap out in every single other area. But that is my FPL Challenge squad. It wasn't too great for me last week. It was a good start with Cole Palmer captain, but yeah, going for Bruno Fernandes and Onana wasn't that great. I don't know why I keep going for Onana in this game. Maybe to jinx him, to be fair. Let's go back to my FPL team though, and then later on I'll go for predictions again and my FPL Challenge team. There might be some changes, but smash the like button if you haven't already. Thank you to those that have done so. Start Pedro or Colwill, it would be Pedro. Raul or Diaz to start. It's still going to be Diaz for me. I think Brentford's a great fixture. The only concern is he going to start because of the flu or the illness he has? That's the only concern there. Yeah, odds on captaining Wood, for me, pretty low. I'm very bullish on Salah or even Palmer if we got a positive update before the deadline. They're my top two. I've currently gone for Isak vice-captain with the Palmer injury news. So, yeah, I don't think Chris Wood will be my captain. I think owning him is already enough for me. Elanga or Jimenez? Assuming that Jimenez starts, I would prefer him. So any advice to bench one of Gabriel, Trent, Hall, Robinson, says Brandon. It's a difficult one, I'm not going to lie to you. I'd consider benching Lewis Hall this week. He is the most in form. But, yeah, I think Bournemouth could score. That's my prediction. Sarr for Rodgers -4? No. No. If you're backing Rodgers to score against Arsenal, then fair enough. I think it's a good long-term investment. But for a -4 hit this week, I'd rather just start Sarr. And if you've got decent bench cover, even a defender like Munoz, I think that's absolutely fine. Colwill is yellow flagged, unfortunately. I did cover this at the beginning of the stream. He's not the only one for Chelsea. Cole Palmer, Enzo Fernandez, and Romeo Lavia. So I think most of them will start. And because they play on Monday, it gives me more confidence about these players. But yeah, with Colwill, he's just not a good FPL asset anyway. So he's on the chopping block regardless. Right now, I prefer Gakpo over Mateta. I could see Mateta scoring against West Ham, and maybe this week he's slightly better, but when you look at Gameweek 23, Gakpo facing Ipswich Town, with Diogo Jota potentially injured again and missing the next couple of games, that would only make Gakpo more nailed on and a better asset for the double game week. So, yeah, it would be Gakpo. Bench Hall or Gabriel? I'd bench Lewis Hall. Lewis or Colwill to Murillo? I mean, they're both sells in my opinion. I'd probably sell Colwill first, though. I mean, Rico Lewis, very, very weird. The fact that, you see Kyle Walker leave the club. A lot of people would have been very bullish on Rico Lewis, at least those that held him, in terms of him starting the next game. And then you've got Mateus Nunes as the right back. That's a bit strange, but yeah, I think ultimately they're both sells. And this week, with Colwill's injury situation, I'd sell him first. I have Raul. Will I sub or I'd start him if you can? No, Jackson's not suspended, so he picked up his 5th yellow card of the season, but as I've talked about many times on this channel, mainly in December, the threshold for the yellow cards increases to 10 from, well, it's not from Gameweek 19, it's after a club has played their 19th Premier League game. So Jackson now needs 10 yellow cards to be banned, and that will be a 2-match suspension if he gets the 10 yellow cards, and he basically has to avoid those 5 yellows now until Gameweek 32. That's the way it works. Rat Dog says bench 1, Trent, Gabriel, Hall, or Joao Pedro. It's between Joao Pedro and Lewis Hall for me. And I mentioned this earlier, Joao Pedro has a good record against Man United. He's also got Danny Welbeck back, which is very promising. I'd probably bench Joao Pedro, though, and start the others. Bench Joao Pedro or Raul? I'd start Raul Jimenez and bench Joao Pedro. Mohammed says, hello Dylan, for Forest defence, do you prefer Aina or Milenkovic? If money is no issue, slight preference for Aina. He's got more bonus points, but in terms of attack and returns, it's going to be close. I think Milenkovic might get more, actually. They both have 2 goals. Milenkovic has 1 assist, and against Southampton, I think if there's one Forest defender to score, I think it's Milenkovic from a set piece. So, yeah, if I'm investing in now, with their fixtures in mind as well, it's probably going to be Milenkovic. Better value for money, and I think more attacking potential. But in terms of points, it's going to be very close. Aina might shade it with that regard in terms of bonus, but it's all a question of your budget. If budget's no issue, I think both of them are great, and Aina will get more points, but it's not going to be it's not much in it. Hi Dylan, Verbruggen to sells. It's a great transfer, especially this week, but bear in mind that Forest have some pretty poor fixtures afterwards. If you're backing them to keep clean sheets against Fulham, Bournemouth, Arsenal, Man City, then fair enough then, but it's going to be difficult. Thoughts on Cunha? I wouldn't be investing in right now, and for those that have him, he might be a decent sell to Gakpo. I think that would be something to look at. And then by Gameweek 26, you can go back to Cunha, and his game in 29 could be fairly decent as well. Aina or Milenkovic? Yeah, that's been covered, sorry. Should he start Pedro or Rodgers? I'd go for Pedro. Start Ahmad or Mateta? Mateta. I'm captaining Isak, going to hide behind the couch for 3 PM games. Yeah, there is that early kickoff curse, the Gandhi stuff with Isak, but with the form he's in, difficult to back against him. Sarr for Ahmad. I think Ahmad is a better option than Sarr, fair enough, but it's also a question of transfers. Are you looking to save up for Gameweek 24? It's not that clear cut. Without knowing the context of your team, it's going to be impossible for me to give you a great answer, but without knowing any of that, I'd say yes. Start Havertz or Mbeumo? Mbeumo. Murphy or Sarr to Gordon? I'd rather sell Sarr, but having Gordon and Murphy in your setup, they're both good options in their own right, but doubling up on the Newcastle midfield and then tripling up with Isak offensively, I'd rather avoid that if you can. So I think if you do sell Sarr, you still would likely sell Murphy in the coming weeks. Rico Lewis to Murillo, says Genius Gamer. Yeah, a lot of people mentioning Murillo in the stream. Look, I'd love to buy a Forest defender this week, and the most accessible for me is Nico Williams. I think that's fine. Murillo's an upgrade. I don't like Rico Lewis long term. Thank you to the moderators, by the way, Lager and Singh, for just keeping things flowing. I do appreciate that. Bench one of Trent, Gabriel, Robinson, Aina, and one of Enzo, Pedro, Ahmad. It's difficult. It's between Gabriel and Trent to bench. I would probably bench Gabriel personally if I had to pick one. I do think Villa score. It's all dependent on your predictions though, because some people might back an Arsenal clean sheet. In that case, don't bench the likes of Gabriel who can get bonus points. As for your other question, Enzo, Pedro, Ahmad, I'd bench Enzo Fernandez, who might not even start. And if Lavia misses out and Enzo starts, that's not good news for him anyway, because he's going to play a deeper role. So Enzo for me on the bench. Start Martinelli or Sarr? Good question. That's very close. Martinelli against that Aston Villa high line. He had so many chances last year at Villa Park, but he fluffed his lines. I'm still going to say Sarr. I'm not entirely confident about him starting, though. It's worth mentioning. Archie says bench one of Jimenez, Eze, Elanga, or Mateta. It has to be one of the Palace players, but which one is the question? Maybe Eze? If he gets a goal, though, expect some bonus points and a decent return. So I'm thinking of Joao Pedro to Gakpo in Gameweek 23 for the good run and the double. To fund it, I can either do Trent to Konate or Gabriel to Mikalenko-Tarkowski. I'm not a big fan of Everton defenders for the double. I think Pickford is the best asset. He can save a penalty, make saves and get bonus points, of course. With Mikalenko, you need a clean sheet, then he might get you a 7-pointer, but don't expect anything more than that. You could get against Leicester City, but in all the other games like Brighton, Tottenham and Liverpool, it's not looking too good. So actually, if I had to pick one to fund it, it might be Trent to Konate. Both Trent and Konate aren't nailed on to start both games in the double. I think only Van Dijk really is in that defensive line. But Trent's ceiling is so high, so it's a very difficult one to weigh up. But if I had to pick, it's probably Trent to Konate. Because with Gabriel to Mikalenko, you might want to go back to Gabriel fairly soon afterwards. Starting Boomer or Hall? Maybe Lewis Hall here. Not particularly fond of either asset this week, it has to be said. Good to see you, Wei Seng, as well. Mazraoui to Mikalenko or Nico Williams? I think Nico Williams is the better FPL asset. The problem is, against Southampton, I've got a sneaky feeling if they were to rotate in any position, it could be in Nico Williams' position on the left. Maybe in the midfield too, with Dominguez. Yeah. I'd say Nico Williams, but be very careful. If you've got any doubts about him being rotated this week, maybe think again. Welcome, Awali. Good to see you, and thank you very much. Start Martinelli or Sarr? Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, Sarr. Hello, Dylan. I have 2 free transfers. Who should I transfer out, Enzo or Colwill, or should I roll the transfer? I think they're both sells ultimately, but I'm sorry to say this, I wouldn't be able to tell you which one because I don't know the context. Which defender would come in for Colwill if he misses out? The same goes for the midfield and forward line. That's very crucial in terms of determining which one you should sell this week. Welcome, Bose. I'm doing well. Hopefully you are too. Idea on investing in Villa defenders for the next 3 game weeks? Yeah, good fixtures after Arsenal, but I don't trust them. They kept the clean sheet against Everton. Konsa got 9 points, but I still wouldn't go there, to be quite honest with you. Sarr to Ahmad or Elanga? This week, Elanga looks better than Ahmad, but long term, I'd just go for Ahmad. I'm not going to lie to you. That would be my pick, Ahmad Diallo. But Southampton is a great fixture to be targeted. Yeah, Gordon's a long-term option, but there are some tough games after the next 3, facing Man City away. Yeah, there's some tough games afterwards, but I still like him. I think he's fixture-proof. Hey, Dylan, start Rodgers or Joao Pedro? Yeah, as covered before, Joao Pedro for me. Semenyo over Kudus, that's fair enough. I do think Kudus will have chances against Crystal Palace, though. Really difficult choosing starting 11 today. So yeah, if you put your players in and I see it, then yeah, we can go through it. Will Diaz start? I mean, he is ill. I can't tell you. I'm not a doctor and I don't have any inside information about if he's got a sore throat still or not. But I think he does start. Same with Gakpo and Salah. That's the first choice front 3. And Brentford away isn't an easy game. At least not overall. For the attackers, it probably will be. They will create chances. Do you think Rodgers returns against Arsenal or should I start Martinelli? I'd rather start Rodgers over Martinelli, to be fair. I think he's more likely. With Martinelli, it's very inconsistent. I'm not sure if Rodgers returns, but he's one of the most likely for Villa. and I am backing them to score. So, yeah, I definitely prefer him over Martinelli this week. Semenyo for Saar -4? Nah, not for a -4 hit. And it also depends on your bench. If you got, I don't know, Jacob Murphy, or you've got a decent fourth defender like Munoz, just go for that. I back an Arsenal clean sheet, but I sold Gabriel this week. I'm cooked. While there are rumours of Saliba missing out, I'm not sure how concrete they are, but he wasn't spotted in training yesterday at least, which is very concerning. Bench Ahmad or Joao Pedro? That's a difficult one. I know United have got 2 positive results in the last week, but I still don't think it's fully there yet. They're lacking a lot in terms of performance and controlling games. I'm going to go for Amad Diallo, but there's not much separating them. I think Joao Pedro can score at Old Trafford, I'm not going to lie. Morning Dylan, bench 1, Mbumo, Joelinton, Hall. Joelinton. Sarr, Mbumo, Raul, bench 1. I'd bench Ismaila Sarr. Robinson or Aina? I'd start Aina this week. Opinions on Jackson to Wood and Sarr to Elanga, says CJ345. Yeah, good transfers overall. Just also weigh up Gameweek 24. How many Liverpool players do you have? Are you using the assistant manager chip on Arne Slot? Do you want some Everton players like Pickford? And just the question of free transfers, which is something I'm also weighing up myself. But in isolation, they're good moves. Yeah, it's kind of an awkward one with Saliba. But if you've got Saliba and Gabriel, I'd be quite keen to sell Saliba, go to a Liverpool player for the double, or you might go elsewhere with Munoz, Robinson, Lewis Hall, etc. But yeah, with Saliba, I think he's more of a sell. Even if he starts, I don't see a good return against Villa anyway. Start Iwobi or Mbumo. Iwobi's got a better fixture this week, but he's feast or famine. You get 15 points or you get 1 or 2. It's just very inconsistent, but I'm going to say Mbumo. Play Mbumo or Rodgers. This is a close one. I'd slightly prefer Mbumo, but not much in it. Mbumo or Wissa? Mbumo. Gabriel or Rodgers? Gabriel. Just about. Is Gordon a long-term pick, as mentioned earlier, mate? Yes. Joao Pedro to Wood. I don't actually mind Joao Pedro against Man United, but Chris Wood against Southampton is an upgrade. The fixtures afterwards are quite poor for Forest. They're near the bottom of the FDR over the next 12 game weeks and even over the next 6. But yeah, I'd probably do it. I think he's an upgrade overall. He's fixture proof. Thank you, Michael Donnelly. Sell Garnacho for a -4 to Rodgers, Gibbs-White or Ahmad. Long term, yeah. Gibbs-White looks great this week, but it's all about Rodgers or Amad Diallo. That's a good question. I still think Rodgers is slightly better than Amad Diallo long term, but we're talking about very fine margins here. Undoubtedly, they're the 2 standout budget midfielders in the game. This week, Ahmad over Rodgers, yeah, is going to be the play, but longer term, I still can't help but think Rodgers might be slightly better. That's going to be my pick, but Arsenal away or Brighton at home, not the best of entry points for either Rodgers or Amad Diallo. Thank you, Lucas. Konsa to Milenkovic, yeah, looks good to me. And I think with Forest, it might be best in terms of investing in a budget defender like Milenkovic or Nico Williams, and they can be your 4th or 5th defender when the fixtures get tough, but they are fairly fixture-proof as well, actually. I'm at risk getting Captain Haaland. Yeah, he has a slight problem, I think, in terms of fitness. Pep he wasn't really concrete about it in terms of the press conference, so nothing new there. But I think Haaland will start and score a goal or 2 against Ipswich Town. It's not a bad captaincy shout. He might even be higher than Isak for me this week in terms of the rankings. Start Sarr over Rodgers or Semenyo. I'm not sure if I'd start Sarr, to be fair. I'm not sure if I would. He was spotted in training yesterday, which is pretty good news, but yeah, it'd have to be over Rodgers for me. I think Rodgers is the worst of the 3 on paper, but Arsenal are kind of there for the taking still. My 11, Raya, Hall, Colwill, Trent, Salah, Palmer, Sarr, Gordon, Raul, Jackson, Isak. Bench, Fabianski, Greaves, Vandenberg. 1 free transfer, 1.7 million in the bank. Roll or transfer tips, would you do one of the current forwards to Chris Wood? Not this week, no. I think Chris Wood is better overall in terms of value and points than Jackson and Raul Jimenez, but they've got good fixtures this week. I wouldn't pull the trigger. I'd roll in your case. I think that's the best thing to do. You've got Trent and Salah already for the double. but by rolling, it gives you more flexibility. You can triple up with Gakpo. I think Jackson to Gakpo next week, Aranya, is the best move for you. If only I could be so decisive and also, I don't know, give better advice to myself. That'd be great, but I'm just all over the place with my team. Is he a captain this week, though, says Sahil? Is that in reference to Amad Diallo? If that's the case, then no, not for me. Raul or Eze? Raul Jimenez. Iwobi or Mbumo? As covered earlier, it'd be Mbumo. DCL or Ndai? Neither. Can I say that? Ndai is a decent player, good ball control, nice to watch at times, but FPL-wise, I just don't think either offers great value. Calvert-Lewin's on penalties, and if he does score, he'll get bonus points, but the last time he did score was back in game week, what, 3 or 4? I've lost count now. 15 straight blanks for him. I'd go for neither, honestly. Punt on Felix if Palmer is out. You'd have to be in a really good position with your squad to take that sort of punt, but not for me. Start Murphy or Kulusevski? That's a good one. I'd go for Jacob Murphy. Robinson, Enzo or Rodgers? I have Palmer and Jackson and Gabriel. Yeah, Robinson for me. That'd be the one. Should I use bench boost with Fabianski, Rodgers, Munoz and Mikolenko? No. What do you think Marmoush's price and position will be? I think a midfielder and price... that's a good one. Probably 7 million would be my current guess, but he's got the second most goals and assists across Europe's top 5 leagues behind Salah. So maybe that's a bit too underpriced, actually. It's just with Man City assets, I mean, if he's priced at 8-9 million, no one's going to go there. Would you sell Timber to someone else? He's been poor lately. Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. I think he's been a bit more sloppy in recent matches, but let's not forget, he's just come off the back of an ACL injury, and he's overplaying because of the injuries to White, Tomiyasu, Sinchenko, and all these other players. I've lost count, Calafiori. So he's just been overplayed. I think if I had Timber, I'd sell him if you also have Raya or Gabriel, and I'd trim it down to one Arsenal defender. They've got some good fixtures, though, after Aston Villa. It is Man City fairly soon, but you've got West Ham, Leicester, Wolves. There could be a clean sheet or two there. No one talking about Paqueta? Yeah, he's showing good form under Graham Potter, but not for me. I don't think that's worth going for. Thank you, Lager, as well, for keeping things civil. I appreciate it. So our aim is to get this to 200 likes. We've got over an hour left until the deadline. I'm going to put a poll out. Let me just answer these two questions by Rania and Samir. So Samir says Joao Pedro to Gakpo and Enzo to Amad. Yeah. You set yourself well for the double by going for Gakpo. I think the best time to buy Gakpo might be Gameweek 23, but Brentford away is a good fixture for attackers. And Enzo to Amad, it's an upgrade. So you get rid of a yellow flag player and also just someone you probably want to sell long term. I still like Rodgers a lot longer term. He might be slightly better than Amad, but that's very, very close. Overall, you're making upgrades and it's looking very, very solid. Start Raya or Fabianski this game week? Raya. Also, would you prefer Liverpool triple up with Gakpo or Slot for Gameweek 24? Probably Arne Slot, if I can build towards that, if I'm being honest. But I do like Gakpo. He's also a nice purchase in Gameweek 23 against Ipswich Town. And if Jota is injured kind of longer term, he's missing the next 3 or 4 matches, then Gakpo looks really appealing. But it's going to be Arne Slot for me. And when I say for me, as in I think he's better, I might not be able to go there with my restricted budget. My team's all over the place, in my opinion. So I'm going to put a poll out and see what you lot think. But yeah, it's not looking good for my squad. I've got 2 free transfers, but with 3 yellow flags, with no Anthony Gordon, who I should have bought in time ago, it's just not looking great. But I'm going to put this one out quickly. Mateta versus Eze. Slight preference for Mateta, Weising. That would be my kind of 2 cents on it. Eze is a bonus points machine. Good form recently, but Mateta against West Ham, I could see him scoring. So this will also help those that are tuning in kind of late. Check out my team selection video if you haven't already for more in-depth analysis. But yeah, these are going to be my transfer plans. So rolling is one of them. That might be the best case scenario. And then yeah, Raya and Sa to Sells and Gordon. And then let's get this up. Oh yeah, Colwill. And Williams? Ugh. Yeah, I think that's probably what I'm looking at. If I want to buy Gordon in still, if I'm really that bullish, I don't see myself selling a forward to buy Gakpo this week. That's something I could do in Gameweek 23. Jackson would be the obvious sell against Man City away. But these are pretty much my current plans. The alternative is, well, there's so many things I could do this week. That's the problem. Sometimes by rolling, I just put myself in, I just go into overthinking mode, which is not the way to play this game. But yeah, an alternative would be to buy Ahmad, or even buy Van Dijk and Sells at the same time. But I'm going to go for the Ahmad option here. So it would be Colwill and Sa to Virgil and Ahmad. So yeah, something like that. It's pretty much all over the place. Let's go to the new super chats though. Thank you to those that have been sending them in. I appreciate it. So Keith says, start Sa or Rodgers today. I'm not entirely convinced about Sa starting, but I'd start him over Rodgers. Now, I am backing Aston Villa to score, and I think Rodgers is one of the most likely, but yeah, it's still the Arsenal defence. They've been fairly solid, even in recent games. You know, in the cup competitions, they're a bit shakier, I have to say, especially against Newcastle, but they're still very solid defensively, and they've been fairly unlucky, I think, in some of these matches to concede the goals they have done. The underlying stats are still the best defensively in the league. Yeah, I'm going to go for Ismaila Sarr here. Just about, I have to say that. So right now, I mean, it's very early days, but yeah, it's very close between buying Sells and Gordon compared to rolling the transfer. Yeah, look, for this week, I think the best move is Sells and Gordon, and I've said this already, but the problem with that is it leaves me with one free transfer going into Gameweek 23, and to then get a second or third Liverpool player will be more difficult, especially by buying Gordon, which gives me less money to work with, and to use the assistant managership on slot, it just becomes even more challenging. So yeah, it's going to be difficult, but sometimes just target what's right in front of you. Darwin could start, to be fair, that is possible. If Diaz is not fully recovered, it will be Darwin starting. I don't see Jota getting the nod with the recent injury update by Arne Slot. Kevin says, hi there, start one of Mbeumo, Pedro or Timber. It's going to be Mbeumo for me, but Liverpool are still a top team. Despite their recent slip-ups, I still think they're in a strong position. I would bench Sarr and start Ahmad. Elliot Manduna says, Saliba to Konate and Vardy to Wood for free. Yeah. Konate's not great for this week, but he does set you up well for Gameweek 23 and 24. So that looks fairly decent to me. If you've got enough money and it doesn't affect future moves, maybe Van Dijk over Konate, but that's very team dependent. If that's not really something you can go towards, Konate's fine. Hi Dylan, bench 2 out of Hall, Howson, Castagna, Rodgers and Boomer Welbeck. I'd bench Howson and probably Rodgers. Welbeck has a fairly decent record against United as well. Get Gordon and Konate. I can't afford that, unfortunately, mate. So the reason why I'm talking about selling Raya to Sells is to fund the Gordon move. So yeah, that's the kind of the problem I find myself in. You know, if you make a really good suggestion, it's just I don't have the money for that. Yeah, don't know what's happening there. Double Gameweek 24. Ndiaye will be targeted with my current budget. I know Liverpool is tough fixture, but anything can happen. He should score against Leicester. Look, I think Ndiaye, he's got something about him. I don't think he's a great goal scorer or assister, but he's a decent dribbler. He's got moments in him, I think, and I did highlight him at the beginning of the season. But FPL-wise, you're going to get inconsistency. So with the Everton assets against Leicester, on paper they're likely going to win, but who's going to score? I don't think you can really definitively say. They don't have a clear goal scorer. Thank you, Keith, and good luck in Gameweek 22. Start 2 of Joao Pedro, Rodgers and Hall. I'd bench Rodgers personally, which might be controversial, especially compared to JP. If Palmer didn't train anything after his knock, then there must be a high chance of him not starting on Monday. Yeah, no, you're right. And also, Enzo Maresca said, there is a chance he doesn't train for the next 2 days, which is very concerning to say the least. But there are certain players, I think Saka's done this before, Cole Palmer as well, where they haven't trained and they still play. Of course, it's not an ideal scenario. You want players well prepared for the upcoming match, but yeah, I still think Palmer starts if I'm being honest with you. Welcome FPL Kevy. How have you been? At the moment, I have Wissa, Rogers benched. Don't like benching Wissa. Should I play him over, say, Virgil or Semenyo? I'd play him over Virgil. I think Liverpool concede. And Virgil is more of an asset for Gameweek 23 and 24. Not too fond of him, before or afterwards, really. So, yeah, I'd start him over Virgil. Enzo to Ahmad, a little hesitant considering I already have Bruno Fernandes. I would avoid that double up in the midfield. But I understand why you want to go to Ahmad. He is an upgrade on Enzo. So in isolation, great move. I don't mind it. But in future weeks, you might want to sell Bruno, which might seem a bit weird to do. But yeah, just be very mindful about that United double up. They're far too inconsistent to do that. If Saliba's not starting, should I go for Munoz over Gabriel? It's a good question. I personally wouldn't do it though. Munoz has so many different avenues to points, but so does Gabriel. Very unfortunate, you could say, or just so close to getting a massive haul against Tottenham again. Of course, he was pivotal for the first goal, and he was man of the match again in a North London derby. No, not for me. I wouldn't play Munoz over Gabriel, even with that potential Saliba injury. Is it time to get fancy? Depends what you mean by that. But yeah, I go for Wissa in your case. Play Munoz or Kanate? Munoz. Is Sarr starting? He was in training yesterday, which is very promising. It doesn't seem like it's a major issue, and Oliver Glasner said that himself. I think the closer I get to deadline, the more confident I am about Ismaila Sarr starting, to be fair. Sarr to Eze for a -4 or playing Boomer? Nah, I would not do that -4 hit, to be fair. By the way, I'm going to put Sarr in my starting 11 for now, and I've got 3 yellow flagged players there, but I'm probably going to make some moves regardless. Wolverine says, hi Dylan, hold on to Cunha, or who's the best Cunha replacement? Gakpo. Yeah, I think buying Gakpo, which you could do next week, by the way, that might be the best course of action. You reassess your options, but yeah, it's going to be Gakpo for the double. Haaland, what about him? I think he's going to start, by the way, but I wouldn't be buying him in right now. If you got him, hold, maybe sell in Gameweek 23, but he's not a purchase. So yeah, Colwill, he's going to be a sell regardless. It's just a question of when. And if he doesn't play against Wolves, I've got Veltman against Man United. Even if Brighton get one of their victories at Old Trafford, which they have done in recent years, I don't see them keeping a clean sheet. So it's not looking too good for my defensive line. I'm probably going to make a move, and it might be even now in the next hour or so. Mitra says, start Semenyo or Mbeumo. It's a very close one, but I'm going for Mbeumo at the moment. I just think he's far more consistent than Semenyo, who's kind of like, you don't know when he's going to, return. Basically, when I have Semenyo on my bench, he does get something, so maybe you should start him, but I think Mbeumo is the more logical pick. Despite facing Liverpool, very unlucky not to return against Man City. He's on penalties, which is a big plus point, and his underlying stats are very solid. With Semenyo, it's really the shot volume, which is very intriguing. The rest is quite subpar. It's very close, but for me, it's going to be Mbeumo. Start Buonanotte or Wilson? Wilson. Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, Way saying Mateta for me. I sold Saliba for Munoz. Who should I play out of Gabriel Munoz? Gabriel. Bench 1, Gabriel, Sarr, Robinson, Gvardiol, Hall. I would bench... I think Sarr. Free transfers, Mbeumo to Gordon now, then bring Gakpo in next week. I see what you're doing, and I've also considered Mbeumo to Gordon, but I just don't like that. I think long-term, he's better than Gordon. And you might want to reverse that transfer by Gameweek 26, or buy Mbeumo back even earlier. I wouldn't do that. Gakpo in next week looks fine, by the way. That's a great move, but Mbeumo to Gordon, I'm not entirely sure about it. Start Cunha or Ahmad? Ahmad. Is it time to get fancy? Dylan, depends what you mean. Absolutely kill me, bro. Like I said before, don't ever change, mate. You're a legend. Yeah, look, thank you very much. It's just, I don't know, it's the first thing that came to my head. I've got no filter sometimes, which is maybe a bad thing. Do I bench Diaz for Wissa? If so, should I sell Wissa, and for who? Now, that's an intriguing one. Very close. I am backing Liverpool to win big, 3-1. But Diaz might not start because he's got a sore throat right now. I personally think he does start, and I would favour Diaz over Wissa. But I think either one is a solid option this week. Not great, but decent enough to not really have to make a move to really bench them, I think. Dylan, for your own team, says Richard Millerchip, can you afford Gabriel and Sarr to Kanate and Gordon and keep Raya? Actually, could you even afford Gabriel and Semenyo to Kanate and Gordon and keep Sarr for the better fixture run? I think I could. I haven't checked those transfers, to be fair. I've been quite bullish on keeping Gabriel. And I think if I do sell him, I'm going to want him back fairly soon. But David Raya does cover him. So I do get what you're saying there. It's something I probably should look at, to be fair. I'll have a look now. But yeah, no guarantees, to be fair. There's just so many different options for me this week, despite only having 2 free transfers. And yeah, it's just I've been so bullish on Gordon all the time. I've been recommending him to people, and I haven't gone there myself, which is quite frustrating. Martinelli to Gordon or hold? I'd go to Gordon, no question about it. Is Semenyo to Ahmad a good move and start 2 of Eze, Ahmad, and Joao Pedro? Yeah, I think Semenyo to Ahmad is fine. I don't see it as a massive upgrade, just to be clear. But I just think with Ahmad, since Gameweek 11, when he's gotten starts, only Isak, Palmer, and Salah have outscored him. So very impressive for that price point. Yeah, as for your last question, start 2. It's going to be Ahmad and Eze. I don't mind Joao Pedro, though, against United. I don't, but he would be last in the pecking order. Paul says Mateta and Palmer to Haaland and Rodgers for free. No, not for me. Haaland looks great this week, and Rodgers is a good long-term option. But Palmer should be back fairly soon, even if he misses the Wolves game on Monday, which I personally don't think he will. I think he's going to start. And I actually like Mateta against West Ham, I'm not going to lie. And you could even do something like Mateta to Gakpo in Gameweek 23 or 24. So my answer would be no. I get why you're thinking about it. Haaland looks great against Ipswich Town, but afterwards it's Chelsea and Arsenal, and he's been so inconsistent since Gameweek 5, essentially. So not for me. Ahmad or Mateta? Mateta for me. I'm actually quite bullish on him for the next 2 or 3 game weeks. So that answers Aaron's question as well. Hassan says start 2 Munoz, Hall, Sarr, and Robinson. Robinson and probably Lewis Hall. I don't think Newcastle are kind of guaranteed a clean sheet against Bournemouth. In fact, I think they concede, but compared to the others, I think Hall is slightly better. Rodgers or Aït-Nouri? Rodgers. Ahmad or Joao Pedro this game week? Ahmad. Not much in it though. Hopefully easy 9-9, hopefully, but FPL can surprise you sometimes. Foden has been brilliant in the last couple of matches, to be fair. But I think it's a case of holding if you have. I wouldn't buy him in right now, because after Ipswich Town, you've got Chelsea and Arsenal, and Man City are still not fully convincing yet. Offensively, they're kind of getting back to the creativity, the clinical edge to them, but they're all over the place at the back, and that lack of control really concerns me. Unless you're in a really strong position where you can afford buying Foden as a 1-week punt, I'd avoid it. Haaland captain is right up there for me. He's probably in the top 3 over Chris Wood and Isak. But I still think Salah and Palmer, if fit, are above him. Daily Dose says bench 1, Gabriel, Robinson, Hall, and Aina. I think I covered this earlier, and I would reluctantly bench Lewis Hall. Currently on the Palmer captaincy with Rodgers first on the bench and Isak with the vice captaincy. Looks pretty solid to me. I think Salah's better than Isak, at least for the captaincy, but that's all, kind of our own opinions. They're all great options. I call them the big 3 now: Isak, Palmer, and Salah. Trent or Gabriel? Slight preference for Trent, because I personally think Gabriel will concede. And Aston Villa's a pretty tough opponent, to be fair. So, yeah, I think both of them will ultimately not keep a clean sheet, but Trent's got more avenues to points, you could say, with the assists as well. So, yeah, Trent for me. I would play Robinson over Gabriel this week. It's quite rare for me to say that, but Leicester have been toothless in front of goal. It would be quite unfortunate if they somehow kind of develop a clinical edge and Vardy buries his chances, but it's always possible. I'd still go for Robinson though. Should I sell Martinelli for Savio? Personally, I'm not that keen on Savio. Look, he's been in great form himself, just like Phil Foden. But it's really a 1-week punt. That's the way I look at him. I think he'll blank in a lot of the tougher games coming up, like Chelsea, for example. That could be a blank. So, look, I could be wrong about that, and Chelsea are quite poor defensively. Arsenal aren't in the best of shape, but I'd rather go elsewhere. That could be Rodgers, Amad Diallo long term. Semenyo, I mean, I'm not a big fan of him to be fair, but I think he's better than Savio longer term. I think Palmer's okay, but that's my opinion. I could be wrong. Start one of Rodgers or Sarr. It would be Sarr. Bench Milenkovic or Robinson if I have cells in the net. I would bench Robinson. I still just look at that Southampton fixture and Forest's defence. It's just too good to turn down. Amad or Wissa to play? Amad. Welcome, JRE Clips the GOAT. Hey, mate. I don't know why I said it like that. Hope you are well. Which two would you start of Gabriel Hall or Enzo? I'd start the first two and bench Enzo Fernandez. Even if he's fit, there is the possibility of Lavia missing out, and if that happens, Enzo plays deeper, and that's just not good for FPL. So, yeah, I'd bench Enzo Fernandez. I'd start Rodgers over Timber, personally. If it's Gabriel, it's a bit different because he's got more attacking potential, but with Timber, it's going to be Rodgers. Madueke for Sarr? Not for me. Once again, I'm going to say Rodgers, Amad Diallo long term. They're good acquisitions. Yeah, I wouldn't go there. My favourite captain is Salah. Then I'm looking at Palmer and Haaland. I think with Palmer's yellow flag and the update by Enzo Maresca, I'm less keen on him, but it could be like Isak last week where he ends up starting the game and getting a massive return. I don't think Gordon's essential, but over the next 3 game weeks, he's in the top 2 or 3 midfielders in the game. Start Rodgers or Joao Pedro? As covered earlier, Joao Pedro. Should I sell Enzo for Iwobi Elanga for a -4? Not too keen on that. Elanga's the most appealing of the two, I have to say that. He's been fantastic in the last 5-6 game weeks. Poor underlying numbers, but he's finding a way to get some returns, and Forest have been looking so strong. I'd rather go for Rodgers and Amad Diallo long term, though. I would start Mateta over Amad Diallo, as covered earlier. Karam says start 2 of Colwill, Rico Lewis, and Trent. Yeah, it'd be Trent and Colwill. Have Lewis first on your bench, but there could be a chance of Nunes starting again. I do think Lewis will start this time, but it's not a guarantee. Amad, Rodgers, Pedro, and Lewis start 2, bench 2. I'd start Amad Diallo and potentially Joao Pedro, actually. Henderson or Fabianski? That's a good question. Probably Henderson. But yeah, I mean, West Ham might have a slightly better chance of winning the game, so it's a very close one. Yeah, challenge team I showed you earlier, Black Shadow. I'll go through it again after the deadline has passed, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Rodgers and Larson play one or sell Larson to any 5.8 million forward. Larson against Chelsea away isn't too shabby, but yeah, Rodgers is the better asset overall. I'd probably start Rodgers here, and if you were to sell Larson to a 5.8 million forward, you'd be looking at Raul Jimenez, I think. Aina versus Milenkovic. Yeah, I think what justifies the extra 0.5 million is the bonus points. But in terms of pure value, and also the upcoming fixtures where with Aina being more expensive, do you want to bench him on certain occasions? I mean, it's not ideal. If I'm investing in now, I'd rather go for Milenkovic, and it also could be very useful for the assistant manager chip in Gameweek 24 if you want to use it, or to triple up on Liverpool and have more money in the bank to buy Gakpo or Trent. So that's why it's all team dependent, but I'd rather go for Milenkovic right now. So yeah, at the moment, I covered this literally like 3-4 minutes ago. It'd be Salah for me as the captain. Amad, Rodgers, yeah, that's been covered as well. Forest defense still worth doubling. They are facing teams with high shooting in the upcoming fixtures. I think if you got one, you stick with what you have. For this week, it looks brilliant to double or triple up defensively, but afterwards, you're going to have some problems, in my opinion. So, yeah, if you've got a double up, definitely keep it this week. Then you can reassess in a couple of weeks' time, but ultimately, I think one is probably the sweet spot. Bench Wissa or Rodgers? I'd bench Rodgers. My plan with Sarr is probably to sell him. I shouldn't have bought him in the first place, to be fair. I think he'll start against West Ham, but I'm not fully convinced. He did train yesterday. Yeah, I would start Robinson over Sarr and Lewis Hall, actually. I think I'd probably bench Sarr from the 4. Start Robinson back 4, or start JP, or start both and bench Sarr. I'd start both and bench Sar. I'm actually not that against JP this week. He's also quite a weird player. When he's got an easy game on paper, like Ipswich Town, home and away, he blanks, Southampton at home, blanks. Then against Arsenal, Villa, United, he'll get the returns. So, yeah, I think JP is actually decent in Gameweek 22. Should I sell Odegaard for Gordon or Mbumo? Yeah, if I'm buying one now, it's Gordon, at least short term, but yeah, you'd want to have Mbumo, I think, fairly soon as well. Or wait for Arsenal Wolves fixture. I'd sell him. I'm not going to lie. I love Odegaard. And by the way, he was brilliant against United, in terms of creativity. 10 chances created, 4 big chances. And against Spurs, he also had a very good performance. But in front of goal, I don't know what's happened to him, because 2 years ago, he set the all-time Premier League record for most non-penalty league goals with 15, matching De Bruyne. And he's just not scoring from open play now, so I'd sell him. Sar trained yesterday. That's the only real news I've got for you, mate. I haven't got any more updates. Thanks for wishing me luck when I said I'm captaining Ahmad. Yeah, look, I mean, enjoy the points, but I had nothing to do with that, to be fair. But yeah, I wish people well. I wish myself well, but I don't perform well. Not recently, anyway. No, Ahmad is not essential. He scored a hat-trick against the worst team in Premier League history. He's a top talent, and scoring a hat-trick is not easy, even against a team like Southampton, but it's Brighton next. United do struggle against them more often than not. I think Diallo's okay. He's a good long-term investment, but it's not like you'd buy him in now expecting another big haul. Mateta or Wissa for long-term? Probably Wissa if you look longer-term, but I do like both. 8 Nuri to Milenkovic for a -4? Not for a hit, no. Play Munoz or Colwill? Munoz. Sell Gakpo or Jackson to get Wood or roll? No, I'd roll. I'd roll. You could do Jackson to, well, you've already got Gakpo, but you could maybe sell Jackson next week, and that would allow you to make other moves in the future. But Jackson against Wolves, I think, is a hold. I really think that. Sell Cole or buy Williams? I've been thinking about that. If you check my poll, it is one of the options there. I'm slightly concerned that Forest could rotate in 1 or 2 positions and Williams could be a sacrifice for Alex Moreno because they are facing Southampton. That's my slight concern. So I am putting myself in a slightly precarious situation for Double Gameweek 24. But I think I'm going to pull the trigger on certain moves. Let me know in the live chat what you think. Just say yes, no, you're stupid, or good moves. I don't know. Just put your thoughts. I am looking at selling Raya to Sells or Pickford, which might be the better play longer term, and then buying Gordon for Sar. It does improve my team drastically this week on paper, and I don't think Sells is terrible even in those tougher games coming up, because I think Forest will surprise people still in some of those matches, keeping a clean sheet. Sells still getting 3 or 4 points when he doesn't keep the clean sheet, so that is what I'm looking at right now. Yeah, it's not entirely easy, I think, to determine these transfer plans. Let me actually open another tab and show you. So this was recommended, I think, by Richard Milichip. So we'll test it out. So he was saying Semenyo to Gordon and then Gabriel to Konate. Well, yeah, I do have enough money for that. I've got 5.7 million in the bank, so that looks fairly decent. For this week, of course, Konate isn't great against Brentford, but it's another doubler for Gameweek 24. And it might be the better long-term play compared to Sells. But yeah, that's not a bad suggestion at all. In fact, it's a very good one. I'm not going to lie. If I had enough money and I could go to Van Dijk, I mean, to be fair, I wouldn't sell Gabriel to Van Dijk this week, but that's a move I would consider in future weeks. But yeah, Raya, good goalkeeper, probably third in my list still. But Sells and Pickford just offer much better value. But yeah, there's a lot of things I could do this week. Even, for example, if I keep Semenyo and keep Ismaila Sarr, I could even do something like this where I go for Sells and I go for Van Dijk for Colwill. In fact, I could even go... By the way, I can keep Gabriel and I can buy Van Dijk. I can do Colwill to Van Dijk. And of course, I could sell Gabriel to Trent, which looks fairly decent, actually. But yeah, there's a lot of things I could do. It's just for Gameweek 24, I've also thought about this. If we go to fpl.team, and I'll show you quickly. So this is what I could do by rolling this week, just to kind of reiterate. So roll this week, go for this sort of team. Worst case scenario, I've got Sarr and Colwill subbed off or on the bench. is still not terrible. I think Veltman's the biggest weak link by far, of course. But if not, the expected points is quite high according to FPL.team, yada, yada, yada. Game week 23. Of course, yeah, Cole will get off against Man City, despite their form. Yeah, okay, Veltman in. I could buy Gakpo for Jackson and still roll the other moves, not use the other transfers, and have 3 available for Game week 24. Buy Mikalenko, buy Pickford, and then buy Trent, or use the assistant manager chip on Arne Slot. And if I wanted to do that, I mean, what do we do here? Maybe I go to Lewis Hall, maybe I go to Daniel Munoz, or a different defender entirely. Just someone cheaper enough to be able to afford Arne Slot, basically, which is going to be most defenders in the game. But that looks fairly solid. It's just I've still got Sarr or Semenyo with tough fixtures against Man United away or Liverpool at home. Mbeumo against Tottenham is fine, in my opinion. Chris Wood against Brighton, decent. No problems with that. But that's still a slight weakness of this team by rolling in Game week 22, Gakpo in for Jackson in Game week 23, and then buying Mikalenko, Trent, Pickford in Game week 24. But yeah, this looks pretty good for Game week 24. I'm not going to lie. It looks very, very optimized, so to speak, with 5 doublers. I don't think Everton players are a priority, though, despite having Leicester at home. I think one's enough, and Jordan Pickford is the standout. So I'm going to go into that fairly soon. Payman Armin, good to see you again. Hi, Dylan. Forward is the same. Salah, Palmer, Gordon, Ahmad, and Rogers. Trent, Gabriel, Hall, Robinson, and Munoz. Pickford and Fabianski. Bench, team rank. Okay, so forward line is the same as mine. Okay, yeah, good forward line for now. I think Jackson would be sellable next week. Gakpo would be the standout. Salah, Palmer, Gordon, Ahmad, and Rogers. Very solid midfield. Trent, Gabriel, Hall, Robinson, Munoz. Okay, so the bench. Pickford or Fabianski this week. Slight preference for Fabianski. Slight preference. Defensively, Gabriel, Robinson, and Trent, I think, would be my back 3. I don't see many clean sheets, though, in terms of their defenders. They're good options, by the way. I wouldn't be selling them, but for this week, it's a bit awkward. Midfield, I would bench Rogers, reluctantly. I think he's a good asset still. So Salah, Palmer, Gordon, Ahmad. If Palmer does miss out somehow, then you've got Rogers coming in, that's fine. And then up front is the same. Yeah, you start all of them. So, yeah, on the bench, basically, it'd be Rogers first, Lewis Hall second, and Munoz third. You could arguably put Lewis Hall above Rogers. That's entirely up to you. In fact, I might even recommend doing that. But that would be the bench. Team rank, I mean, I rarely do like ratings. Even when I do a rating your team's video, I kind of point out the best things about it, weaknesses, things to improve. 8.5 out of 10, 9. I think it's a very solid squad in the long term. And you've got Pickford for the double. You've got Trent. You've got Salah. So you're well prepared, I think. Of course, thinking about Game week 29, there could be some issues for that game week, but we'll get to that when the time comes, and you could use the free hit. So that's fine. So Adam says roll. Ezra says that's better. I'm not sure what that's in relation to. Sorry for my ignorance. It's just when you put that comment, I was dilly-dallying on fpl.team and stuff, so I don't know which one you're saying is better, but I appreciate the feedback. Start Watkins or Martinelli? Watkins. There is a chance he doesn't start, by the way, but yes, Martinelli, I love the guy, but he is very raw still. Sells in top form now, and Forest defense hard to break. I agree. It's just the fixtures after Southampton aren't great, and my biggest issue with buying Sells this week is the fact that I can't go for Pickford for Game week 24, and I also don't look as strong for that double. It'll be very difficult for me to get to 3 Liverpool and also 1 Everton without taking hits, basically. Bench Castagna or Munoz? I would bench Munoz. Gabriel Rogers, Gabriel. Gvardiol and Enzo and Jackson to Kirkes, Eze and Gakpo next game week. Yeah. The only one I'd slightly reconsider, and I don't think Eze is like a must-have or anything. He's fine as a transfer. But Kirkes to buy in now? I'm not sure about that. I could maybe see what you're doing because he does face Southampton and Leicester fairly soon. So it's really a 3-game week kind of run where it's looking a bit grim for defending, or for a clean sheet, should I say. Yeah, overall it's good transfers. I don't really mind it. Who to bench between Hall and Robinson? I'd start Robinson this week. I'd also start Gabriel over Hall there, Sydney. Hey Dylan, would you start Munoz or Colwill? Munoz. So yeah, as I covered before, it would be Castagna over Munoz this week. Is Cunha to Gakpo worth it? Yes, I think so. You can always go back to Cunha around Gameweek 26. Start Rodgers or Semenyo. Semenyo, just about. He's got 1 goal, 1 assist in 4 games against Newcastle. He got an assist in the reverse fixture earlier this season. I think Palmer will play. Bench Ahmad or Mateta? I'd bench Ahmad reluctantly. Not wait until the deadline again. Yeah, make your transfers as soon as possible and lock in. Who do I start captain in any transfers? Look, it's up to you. I'm only giving my recommendations. Take with a pinch of salt. I captain Salah personally. Who to start? Alisson, but you got Trent as well. Against Brentford, I think they'll concede, but yeah, Alisson, Gabriel, Trent, Aina obviously starts. Benching Gavardio is a bit weird, but there we go. Palmer, Salah, Rodgers, Enzo. To be fair, I'd consider starting 4 defenders in your case. So I'd go for Gavardio in your starting 11. I think you could get an attack and return against Ipswich Town. I'd go for Palmer, Salah, Rodgers. I'd go for Sarr in the starting 11. And you've got Lewis Hall first on your bench. I put Enzo Fernandez second. Yeah, Isak, Jackson, Pedro. I don't mind starting all 3 of them, to be fair. I think Pedro is better than Sarr and Enzo Fernandez this week. So, yeah, I'd be looking at something like that. 3-4-3. I think maybe 4-3-3 is the best in your case. Or you go for a 4-4-2. Even a 5-3-2 is an option for you. So you start Lewis Hall as well. Have Joao Pedro first on your bench. Enzo second. Enzo second? Yeah, I think that's what you could do. Let me just fix this light. For some reason, it keeps bugging out. Don't know why. It keeps bugging out, but yeah, might have to do that in a second. Gakpo versus Wood. This week, Chris Wood looks better, but yeah, if I'm buying a striker now, I'd rather buy Gakpo for the double. Play Sarr or Joao Pedro? Joao Pedro. Gabriel over Lewis for me. Ahmad, Mbeumo and Joao Pedro. Start 2. I would go for Mbeumo and Amad Diallo. I do like Joao Pedro, though, this week. Hey, Dylan, start Joao Pedro or Mbeumo, or play both and bench Amad. I'd probably bench Joao Pedro, but it's very close, and honestly, I'd be a bit uncomfortable benching JP this week. Also, Wood captain, not for me. I do like Chris Wood as an option, but as a captaincy choice, not many double-digit hauls. Should I sell any of Mbeumo, Amad, or Elanga for Gordon? No. I don't think so. If you're in a really strong position, you could do Mbeumo to Gordon and then buy Mbeumo back fairly soon, but I'm not entirely sure about that. Start Fabianski or Raya. I'd go for David Raya. SX Co says, Cunha, Semenyo, Diaz, Pedro, bench 1. I'd bench Semenyo out of the 4. Fulham differential, Harry Wilson. I have 4 free transfers. Any transfers? I'll try to go for it quickly, but there's a lot of questions. I can't even remember where you were. Any transfers? So you've got Alisson, Trent, and Salah already. I'm assuming you're going to stick with that 3 for the double. Yeah, because then, I mean, look, Alisson to Pickford might seem sideways, but you could do that in Gameweek 24, especially if you've still got a lot of free transfers to use. But to bolster your team, I'd be looking at Jackson next week being downgraded, and that can give you more money to invest in the midfield. It's a bit awkward with timing because you could even say Jackson to Chris Wood this week, and then Enzo Fernandez up to Gordon. That could actually be really strong for you if you've got enough money for that, or you sell Sarr instead of Enzo. But that's an idea for you to bolster your team for this week, and you've still got enough free transfers to have a solid setup for Gameweek 24. So, out of those 2, I'd slightly prefer Isak over Chris Wood. The form he's in is unbelievable, Isak. Probably the most informed striker in Europe. I think Sarr will start. He was in training yesterday, but it's not a guarantee. No chance. Bench 1 of Sarr, Rodgers, and Cunha this week. I'd bench Rodgers reluctantly. I'd definitely start Cunha of the 3, though. He scored a hat-trick against Chelsea last season at Stamford Bridge. So let's get the likes up to 200 plus. That'd be massively appreciated. We are close to the deadline, around half an hour. Let me lock in my team. Good to see you, DNNN. Start Sanchez or sell him for sells. If you can, I'd sell him to sells. I don't like Robert Sanchez or any Chelsea defender right now, if I'm being completely honest with you. But yeah, back to this team, which you can see the Game Week 24 provisional squad. If I roll this week, it's not looking great. I'm not going to lie. It's not looking great. In terms of my squad setup, only one Liverpool player right now. I did have Trent, but a very long time ago. Same with Jota. So it might be time to go back to that Liverpool triple up. It would be slightly different though. It's either Gakpo or maybe Arne Slot. And Trent might not even be in my final Game Week 24 team. But essentially, yeah, my defensive line is grim. David Raya isn't great, but at the same time, selling him isn't really ideal this week. In an ideal world, I'd probably keep him until Game Week 24, then sell him to Pickford, whilst also bolstering my defensive line in the process and getting Gordon. But to have all of that, whilst buying more Liverpool players like Trent or Konate, Van Dijk, Gakpo up front is going to be very difficult to achieve. It might need some hits. So I might just tackle what's right in front of me and just play it simple. Improve my team for this week, get Sells and Gordon and reassess, but it's not going to look too good in the long term. I have been asked about FPL Challenge, which I'll go back to after the deadline has passed, but just for those that aren't aware, my current squad with the restricted budget challenge is Sells and goal, Castagna and Milenkovic, Elanga and Jimenez, who's currently my captain, but that could well change. Yeah, it's pretty difficult, I think, to build your kind of ideal squad this week with this challenge, which is the point of it. The captaincy might go to Elanga or even a defender, actually, and just kind of hope for the clean sheet and maybe some bonus points. But that is my current setup, going quite heavy on Forest and Fulham. But yeah, I rarely go for more defenders in this challenge setup. But with this current specific stipulation, it does make sense, I think, with the limited budget. So let's go back to my FPL team, which looks much worse than that, I think, at least this week. Bench Trent or Palmer. Don't bench Palmer. You'd regret that if he does get the start, and I think he will. I'd bench Trent there. Wild card for the double. That has crossed my mind, but I think that's going to leave me in a precarious situation for future blanks and doubles. So I'm not so sure if that's the right play. I also don't think my team is terrible, at least this week and in Game Week 23. I think there is a way to navigate Game Week 24 quite easily, but it might mean pain in one Game Week at least. Play Semenyo or Rodgers. Semenyo. Start Pickford or Leno. Yeah, Worcester to Wood. It's a good transfer this week, but you'll probably want Worcester back by Game Week 23 or slightly afterwards. But I have to say, if I'm buying a forward with a long-term lens, you might even give the edge to Worcester. So I'm not sure about that. Not for me. Not Chris Wood captain, but he's a good option. I think he'll get 7 to 9 points. We'll wait and see. I could be wrong. Maybe he gets a massive return. But I do think there are better options elsewhere. Hi Dylan, bench 1, Wissa, Mbumo, Joao Pedro, Cunha, Ahmad or Martinelli. It's probably going to be Martinelli for me, mate. I think profile-wise, the Villa fixture might suit him a lot. And he has scored against them before, but he can be very wasteful. Do you prefer Slot or Salah triple captain in 24? Salah triple captain. I've already used it, so I don't need to make that decision. I do like Arne Slot a lot for Game Week 24, but there are other opportunities. Of course, with Liverpool, they could double in Game Week 33 as well. So, you know, that's not too shabby. But there is no risk of rotation with Arne Slot, of course, and any manager you go with. But yeah, it'd be Salah triple captain. Hey Dylan, your thoughts on going -4 for Gakpo this week, or do I just wait for next week? Without knowing the context, I'd say wait for next week and do it for free, especially if it involves Jackson, because I think Jackson's a good option this week, and ideally you sell him to Gakpo in 23. So yeah, right now the poll is extremely close, and it does represent my my mindset at the moment. It's between rolling the transfer and then buying Sells and Gordon to really kind of target this week, but yeah, it's not looking too good. Let's see if I've missed any super chats, and I'm going to lock in my team now because I'm kind of sick and tired of this stuff. Yeah, we've covered all of them. Thank you to those that send in super chats. We'll be going on for a little longer as we have reached a goal. And keep your eyes peeled, of course, for the UCL fantasy content over the weekend and the deadline stream on Tuesday. There is also potentially a reaction stream tonight for FPL. Yeah, we'll see what that entails, really. Is Elanga for Sarr a good transfer? Yeah, especially for this week. It's just longer term. I do think Elanga will start to dip with those tougher fixtures, and also the underlying stats aren't quite sustainable. There's no update on Colwill, mate. It's just what happened yesterday. Enzo Maresca said Colwill, Lavia, Fernandez, and Palmer missed training. And he said in regards to Palmer, he might even miss the next 2 days of training. So it's not looking good. But they are playing on Monday. I'm fairly confident most of them will be available, especially Palmer. But Colwill is just a headache. Simple as. Start Sarr or Murphy? I would go for Ismaila Sarr. Sorry, Sarr? Difficult one, to be fair. Difficult one. Yeah, Ismaila Sarr just about. I think Lewis starts, but I'm not fully convinced about that. Against Southampton, worst team this season? Yeah, but it's not that simple, is it? It's not that simple. I mean, Arsenal played Southampton earlier this season. I know Saka got a big return, but yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that straightforward. Raul over Ahmad? Yeah. Savio or Foden and Mateta or Gakpo this game week? This week, I'd say Mateta and Foden. Bench 2 of Gabriel, Hall, Timber, Semenyo, Vissa, Sarr, Pedro. I would bench Sarr and Timber. So let's actually go to some different screens. I'll go back to my FPL squad very soon. If you haven't already, smash the like button and subscribe for new. Hit that notification bell as well so you never miss a single upload for UCL Fantasy or FPL. And check all the links in the description below, including my Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM. You can also find me on Blue Sky by tapping FPL Dylan. The Discord server, FPL League Drafthound, as well as Spotify are also in the description. And for my UCL Fantasy videos, you can find my UCL Fantasy League, which has thousands of members. I believe it's the most popular league in the world in UCL Fantasy and FPL. We've got thousands of members as well, so I do appreciate those that have been tuning in. I'm going to be sorting out my bloody light, which is a bit annoying. I don't know why it loves to act up during a stream. It's always fine in the videos and when, you know, I don't actually need it. So I'm going to sort that out very quickly and see what I can do. But yeah, in my case, very difficult this week with my transfers. I have to say that with the possibility of rolling, set myself better for Double Gameweek 24, but maybe short-term pain by starting the likes of Colwill, Sarr, and Co. That's something I need to weigh up, and I'm going to make a final decision in the next 25 minutes or so. But let's keep going through your questions and comments. There is a poll that you can vote in, not just here in the live stream, but also on my channel. Just go to the community tab on YouTube, and you can see the captaincy. All of that is covered for Gameweek 22, and it will help you with some of your decisions. So currently with this poll I've put out, Raya and Sarr to Sells and Gordon is leading the vote. Roll the transfers second, and then you've got, you know, the kind of alternative moves there. I can see why people aren't too keen on Williams. I can see that. If I was confident of him starting, though, this week, I probably would make that transfer instead, but I've got a slight issue with that. I've got a sneaky feeling he could be benched. Thank you, Kevin. I don't have Wood. Chris Wood, I mean. I have only one free transfer. Who do I sell between Raul and Joao Pedro? If you had to sell one this week, it'd be Joao Pedro, but yeah, it's kind of an awkward one, but it's probably Joao Pedro out. I think Sarr starts, but I covered that earlier. It's not a guarantee. I would start Robinson over Timber Henrik. Homer Beck says, hey Dylan, please bench one. From those four, it's going to be Amad Diallo for me. Singh says, hey Dylan, start 2 out of Amad, Bruno, and Joao Pedro. Bruno Fernandes, good record against Brighton, to be fair. And I'm probably going for Amad as well. Yeah, Havertz to Gakpo is my favourite move, especially with Double Gameweek 24 in mind. I'd start Gabriel over Munoz. Yeah, I think Villa score. Start 2, Amad, Bruno, Mazraoui, Gabriel, Mitoma. Gabriel and Bruno. Hope you've been well, Dylan, says Mohamed. Van Dijk to Aina for a -4 since they're against the Saints this week. No. Because Van Dijk is a good option for Double Gameweek 24, and he's got Ipswich Town next week, whilst Forest have some tough games like Bournemouth, Fulham, Brighton, etc. Then they've got Arsenal and Man City. As good as Forest have been, I'm not entirely sure about that. I'd rather just keep Van Dijk. Next game we get Diaz. Yeah, look, Diaz could be a good Double Gameweek option, but I do you prefer Gakpo right now? It's all team dependent, of course. You might need a midfielder transfer, so Diaz makes more sense for you. I can only answer in terms of, generally speaking. Hi Dylan, bench Timber or Robinson? Yeah, as I covered before, I'd bench Timber. If Williams is benched, my challenge is screwed. Well, you can change it. If you see he's benched, you can swap him out for somebody else. Start Gabriel Munoz, covered, mate. Foden, Savio, Eze, or Ahmad to bring in. To bring in, it's probably going to be Ahmad long term. Foden is the best this week on paper. He's in great form, but the fixtures are poor and Man City aren't fully convincing yet. Out of those three, I would start Robinson and Trent. I'd bench Munoz. Best time to use assistant manager chip is team dependent. I think for those that have used the triple captaincy, in an ideal world, 24 looks very solid. So the first game week where you can use it on Arne's slot. And if Fulham and Spurs double in 25, which I don't think will happen, but if it does, then you can swap Arne's slot to Ange Postecoglou or Silva in 25, and you get 4 games in 2 game weeks. And even then, you could just go for just stick with Arne's slot in game week 25, to be fair. But that looks really good. Maybe Pep Guardiola around game week 36. He could have a very nice double, including Southampton away, and then face Bournemouth at home in the following week. So there are many opportunities. Even game week 31 to 33 might interest a lot of people, depending on how fixtures land for doubles and blanks. But I'm going to say game week 24 looks fairly decent, actually. Start Martinelli or Sarr. Slight preference for Sarr. Thank you. More. Let's say Sarr was fit and expect to play 90 minutes. Would you bench him for Robinson? Yeah, I would. I think Martinelli does start over Sterling. He'll be on the right, Trossard left, and Havertz up front. I think Sterling, will be an impact sub if he's actually called upon. Semenyo or Robinson? Robinson. Free transfers. Should I go Pedro to Gakpo, Bruno to Gordon, and Virgil to Trent? You don't need to use all 3 of them, though. That's the way I'd look at it. Well, maybe you do actually to fund the Pedro to Gakpo move, to be fair. And also for Virgil to Trent. I get what you're doing, but I wouldn't do Virgil to Trent this week. If anything, maybe in game week 23 or 24. But yeah, Pedro to Gakpo, Bruno to Gordon. I like them. I'm not going to lie. Good morning. Play Mikalenko and roll, or transfer in Nico Williams or Murillo for Greaves. I like Nico Williams in terms of his value, what he's been doing recently, but I'm not fully convinced he starts in game week 22 against Southampton. There is a chance Forest decide to rotate 1 or 2 players. I know they've had a 5-day break, but I'm not entirely sure about that. Murillo might be slightly more nailed on for you. My defenders on the bench are Greaves and Kirkes. Not terrible. I think Greaves could be first on your... Kirkes will be first on your bench. Should I get Gordon or Mbeumo? If I'm buying one now, it's probably Gordon, but it's kind of short term. Over the next 3, you've got 2 home games, Bournemouth and Fulham. You've got Southampton away in between. That settles it for me. But Mbeumo around game week 26 and until the end of the season might be even better, to be fair. I like both. In an ideal world, they would both be in my setup, and I might end up pulling the trigger and just buying Gordon and saying F it. But if I'm buying one now, it's probably Gordon. Prince Izzy says, start 3 between Sarr, Jackson, Robinson, Hall. Basically, I would bench Ismaila Sarr. Start Rodgers this week. Depends who you're starting him over, mate. Start Henderson or Fabianski. Slight preference for Henderson. West Ham have a better chance of winning the game, though, which might seem contradictory, but in terms of Palace's record away from home, very solid. They've also... I think Henderson's a better FPL asset than Fabianski, simply put. There is a chance Fabianski doesn't start, by the way, because we haven't been able to fully judge that yet. In the Premier League, when Fabianski started against Fulham, Ariel wasn't even in the bench. He wasn't in the squad, so that is something we haven't fully weighed up yet. But I do think Fabianski starts. Best midfielder under 5.6 million, Jacob Murphy and Elanga. Well, actually, no. What am I saying? I mean, under 5.6 million, it's going to be Rodgers and Ahmad. Those 2 would be top. I think Elanga this week looks amazing, but afterwards, I'm not too keen. So, yeah. I'll give you the top 4. Rodgers, Ahmad, Murphy, Elanga. That's my top 4 right now. I'd rather captain Chris Wood over Gibbs White, but I think the goals could be shared in this game, and I think it's going to be... it could be 3-0, but I'm going for 2-0 for Forest. Why Salah over Isak captain? I think Brentford's a better opposition than Bournemouth. And Bournemouth have been very solid this season. In the reverse fixture, Isak missed a big chance against them. Had a pretty poor performance, actually, although different circumstances. He was quite a slow starter in this campaign. But Salah still averages more points per game. You know, extra point for scoring a goal, clean sheet point. Brentford have conceded 21 goals at the GTEC Community Stadium. And Liverpool are still a better team than Newcastle. So there's a lot of different reasons why. But if you want to go Isak, it's still a great option. I just don't... I think this is the toughest game Isak has in the next three. Hey Dylan, think you missed Super Chat when sorting the screen out. Okay, thank you very much for pointing me in that direction. Start free, Trent, Gavardio, Munoz, Timber, Hall. I would go for... Tricky one. Hall, Trent, and Gavardio. If it was Gabriel, different story, but that's what I'd go for. Yeah, Napstars says... Oh, that's your question, isn't it? So, yeah. That is my preference. I think maybe Timber over Munoz would be my feeling there. I do think Palace concede against West Ham. And you could say the same thing about all of those teams, to be fair, but yeah, Gavardio, Trent, and Lewis Hall would be my starting defensive line if you had to pick three. Benguino says start three of Trent, Robinson, Munoz, Gabriel. Also, why not Wood captain? His ceiling isn't generally as high as Salah, Isak, and Palmer. And I do think the goals could be shared around in that Forest game. I know Chris Wood tends to be the talisman. He gets the bonus points for a reason. But yeah, I don't know. I've just got a sneaky feeling Chris Wood might slightly underwhelm people with that Southampton game. But yeah, Trent, Robinson, Munoz, Gabriel. I would go for Munoz on the bench and start the other three. Hey Dylan, Gabriel or Joao Pedro? Gabriel. Do you think Fulham will keep a clean sheet? I mean, Leicester have been blunt recently, but my prediction is 2-1 Fulham. I do think they concede. But with Robinson, you've got the assist threat, right? That's why, in a lot of cases, I'd start him this week. Chris Wood over Wissa? This week for sure, but longer term, it's a different story. Start one, Iwobi or Sarr? Iwobi. Buenas tardes, Dylan. Playing triple Nottingham Forest defence, plus playing Hall or Robinson. Robinson for me. Triple Forest defence looks great this week. I would reassess that, though, in future game weeks to come. Start Rodgers or Pedro. It would be... Draw Pedro, as I covered earlier. Look, if you're chasing and you're bullish on Chris Wood, you think he's going to do really well, it's not a bad option, don't get me wrong. I just personally prefer Salah, Palmer, Isak, Haaland for those that have him. Yeah, but Chris Wood is top 10 easily. Maybe even top 5 for captaincy on paper. But football isn't played on paper. Neither is FPL. And you get some big surprises at times. Bench 2, Sarr, Rodgers, Gabriel, Trent. Yeah, I'd be benching Rodgers and Sarr. Didn't even realize been a member for over a year now. Yeah, thank you very much, Azabi, and all the channel members and patrons. It's massively appreciated. Yeah, all the support for the channel goes a long way to pushing out the content and keeping things going, so thank you very much. Hi Dylan, should I sell Mazraoui this week to bring Hall or Mikalenko or Nottingham Forest defence? I have sells for a Forest defender. Yeah, I get your question. I think Mazraoui is pretty much a sell anyway. I would probably bring in Hall, and he's just a long-term set and forget. But if you aren't planning to free hit in Game Week 29, also bear that in mind when making your transfers, because Newcastle will likely blank in 29 because they've got one foot in the Carabao Cup final, so that will clash with Game Week 29. Advice for the armband on Palmer or Isak? Well, Palmer is doubtful this week, and he might not even train today or tomorrow, which would be very concerning. I personally think he will start. It is on Monday, and I've currently got the vice captaincy on Isak, but it's probably because of the yellow flag, if I'm honest. I do think if Palmer starts, which is my current prediction, he is the better option than Isak this week. Wolves at home compared to Bournemouth. Yeah, I think there's no contest with that aspect of the captaincy. But then you consider form. Palmer's been good, but Isak has been on red-hot form, scoring in virtually every single game, especially in the Prem, and he is chasing a record set by Jamie Vardy. But yeah, I think Palmer over Isak for the captaincy would be my preference there. Yeah, my captain is Salah. You can see it on screen, mate. Salah's my captain. Mbeumo or Rodgers start one. Mbeumo. From those two, it'd be Salah captain. Like I said with Isak, I think Bournemouth are a better team than people give them credit for. It's not the Bournemouth of 2 or 3 years ago when they lost 9-0 against Liverpool and got battered at home regularly. It's a completely different side. Yeah, well, in your case, you think Palmer won't start. That's fair enough. And I think the yellow flag will put a lot of people off. And if they do go there and he haws, it will be massive this week. Joao Felix will get some game time. Yeah, he's been good in the Cups. He deserves a start. And that's why someone asked me about Joao Felix as a punt. I'm still not fully convinced because you'll probably want to sell him shortly afterwards. And his minutes are all over the place. But Sato Elanga done. Hopefully this 1 week punt goes well. Yeah, look, I haven't really done too many 1 week punts, but I might have to. I might have to this week. Would you sell Sarr because he's flagged or play Rodgers? I'd start Sarr. He was in training yesterday. I'd go for JP over Rodgers there. Ken back. Play free. Rise my goalkeeper. Yeah, I'd bench Timber anyway. If it was Gabriel, different story, but Robinson. Oh, to be fair, you got Lewis. That's it. Not a big fan of Lewis. Even if he starts, which I think he does, I think Ipswich score. But yeah, Robinson and Hall, definitely. Maybe you go for Lewis, maybe. That's fair enough. Just not too keen. I would start Joachim Andersen over Mazraoui. That was me that asked about Joao Felix. Makes sense, yeah. Maybe my head's all over the place. I thought someone else asked me about Joao Felix, though. You know, a non-member, but maybe I'm wrong. Captain Haaland or Salah? Salah. Do you play any video games? Yes, I do. Playing Cyberpunk right now. Very, very good game. Should I play a double Arsenal defence or start Cucurella over Timber? Yeah, good question. I'm just not a big fan of Chelsea defensively. Start Fabianski or Alisson. Slight preference for Alisson. I think both Liverpool and West Ham concede. And I'd personally go for Timber. Bench Gabriel or Anderson? I'd bench Anderson. Ferro says hi Dylan, start free. Aina, Gabriel and Robinson. I'd bench Burn. All right, so time to lock in my team and fully decide. Am I rolling or am I making some transfers? Well, great question, isn't it? Great question. Oh dear, we are in big trouble. Very big trouble. Okay. I miss so many big hauls from Gordon. Does face Southampton away next. It makes it more difficult to buy Trent, Konate. Gakpo is not really an issue because Jackson to Gakpo speaks for itself. I can easily afford that. But yeah, there are some slight complications with these yellow flags. If it wasn't for that, and upon reflecting on, you know, on the Friday, I would have been quite happy to roll, even with Colwill, you know, not being a great asset, just starting him. But the yellow flags are a bit iffy. I'm not gonna lie. Even with this poll, I mean, look at that. It's literally neck and neck. Roll the transfer 35%. Only a few votes behind Raya and Sarr to Sells and Gordon, which looks great this week, but not necessarily for the long term. So yeah, I might have to stomach a bit of pain this week and just go with what I have. So yeah, it's not looking great for me. It really isn't. So yeah, Palmer's still my vice captain here, by the way. And I do expect him to start, but some of you aren't expecting that. Worst case scenario, if Colwill, Sarr and Palmer did miss out, I've got Van den Berg playing against Liverpool. That is awful. That is awful. At least I'd have 11 players in the starting 11, unless something sinister happens. Yeah, I'm not a big fan. On the worst case scenario anyway, I'm kind of thinking too negatively here. I do think one of Sarr or Colwill at least will play. So yeah, I'm going to lock in my team. Like the video if you haven't already. Let's get to 200 likes. We have had 200 to 300 people watching for most of the stream. And for UCL Fantasy, we'll be having even more people tuning in on the Tuesday. Don't miss it. Subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and just check out all the UCL Fantasy content for Matchday 7, which will be up in the next few days. Yeah. I think I'm going to stick with this at the moment, and it's probably going to cause some pain. Start one of Daniel Munoz or Castagna. Castagna. Bench one, JP, Robinson and Munoz. Munoz benched. Niraj says Savinho, Jackson, Ahmad benched. Ahmad, which might sound crazy, but I'd definitely start Jackson from the free. Start Semenyo or Cunha. Cunha. Start Welbeck or Palmer. start Palmer. No matter what you're doing, start Palmer. And for me, he either starts or doesn't play at all. Off the bench, if that actually happened, which for me is very unlikely, he could get a return, but I would not be benching Palmer. Mbuma or Hall? Mbuma. Start Mbuma or Cunha, and Hall or Munoz? That's a really difficult one. I might go for Cunha here, although he is a doubt because of illness. And Hall or Munoz, I would go for Lewis Hall. Hey Dylan, bench 2, Gabriel, Robinson, Trent, Munoz, and Mikalenko. Mikalenko benched and Munoz. Worth a -4 to transfer in Elanga or Ahmad? Depends who you're selling, mate. And I'm not so sure if it is. Ahmad long-term is the better pick. Elanga looks great this week, but I'm not sure if it's worth a hit. Would you do Strand Larson to Jimenez and then bench Timber or Hall? Or save my 1 free transfer? I'd probably save your transfer. Now look, Jimenez against Leicester looks appealing. But Fulham have been a bit iffy against the worst teams in the country. Play Raya or Fabianski, it's going to be Raya. Thoughts on Gibbs White or Elanga? I'm not too keen on them. I mean, I slightly disagree with you. I don't think the fixtures are terrible over the next 4 or 5 game weeks, but they aren't great. After Southampton, you've got Bournemouth, Fulham. Shortly afterwards, it's Arsenal and Man City. Not a big fan of those. So not for me. Yeah, I think Sarr starts. I'm not fully convinced, though. And yesterday, actually, I was actually believing he was not going to play. I definitely don't want to see him off the bench. That would be terrible. Getting a 1 point off the bench. He's done it before against West Ham this season. That would be, it'd be awful. Bench 1, Timber, Munoz, and Virgil. Yeah, of those players, I would go for Munoz on the bench. Trent for Gabriel. More so for Gameweek 23 or 24. I think both Aston Villa and Brentford are tough games for defenders this week, and I think Liverpool and Arsenal concede. So not this week. I'd maybe save that for later. Yeah, the assistant managership used for 3 game weeks, so it'd be 4 games in the double. Yeah, exactly that. So if you go for Arne Slot in Game Week 24, you're exactly right. You'd get 4 games over a 3 game week period. And if we got a double in 25 between Spurs and Fulham, you could get 2 doubles in 2 game weeks and have 4 matches, and then plus the other game week, making it 5. So yeah, that's why the assmanship, as they say, is very, very powerful. Yeah, so we literally got 5 minutes left. I'm kind of disgusted by this team. I know some people say it's all right, but I don't like it. I can't lie. I really don't like it. Yeah, I just wish I could do something about it, really. But it is what it is, right? It is what it is. So yeah, start Munoz or Timber. Timber, I think, in a lot of cases. Sell Martinelli for Gordon, Eze, Mbeumo. Gordon's my favourite right now. In a couple of weeks' time, that will change to Mbeumo. Salah has a nice record at Brentford, whilst Isak has 1 goal against the Cherries. Yeah, 1 goal in 3 games against them. Although he's only played 1 home match against them and he scored. As for Salah, 6 goals in 6 games against Brentford and 1 assist. I'm quite bullish on Salah for the captaincy this week. More so than last time, where I should have gone for Isak, like I talked about. This time, I've got no doubts, really. Foden captain? No, not for me. He's been in brilliant form, by the way. Palmer isn't flagged now. Isak and Murphy are. What? Really? Is that like a... No, I don't think they are, mate. I've just refreshed FPL on another tab. You know, Palmer's flagged, and I'd be surprised if we get an update about him before the deadline. I'm not sure where that's happening. Start Sarr or Mbeumo? Mbeumo for me. I'd start Gordon over Ahmad. Yeah. Sell Colwill, bring Williams or Murillo, or play Sarr and save transfer. I'm in a similar position to you, mate. I'm currently rolling. That's probably what I recommend. I like Williams, but there is a slight chance he is benched against Southampton. It's a good opportunity for Forest to rotate slightly, and I think Williams isn't guaranteed to start here. I could be wrong about it, and a lot of Forest fans, if you ask them, they think he's going to start, but I just think the possibility exists. Raja says start 3, Trent, Gabriel, Timber, Lewis, Castagna. Yeah, essentially from those, I'd bench Timber and possibly Lewis. Yeah, I think Isak is fine. My app glitched. It's okay now. Yeah, no worries about that. I was surprised by that comment anyway. Is Eze a good pick? He's alright. He's been in good form. I wouldn't be investing in him right now, though. West Ham's a good fixture, I think, for attackers, but with the new manager bounce, it's a bit more complicated than it would have been under Lopetegui. And I just think Mbeumo, Gordon should be the priorities. And at a cheaper price, you've got Rodgers and Ahmad. I think they're all better value and just better picks. Bench one of Munoz, Hall, Sarr, and Joao Pedro. I would bench... I'd bench Munoz. I'd bench... Yeah, I think I'd bench Munoz. It's between him and Sarr. So we've literally got 1 minute left for the deadline. I think I'm just going to do it. I'm going to pull the trigger and buy Gordon and Sells. I'm kind of sick and tired. I can get to the double and think about that when the time comes. I'd have Veltman coming on for Colwill. Worst comes to worst. It is what it is, right? It is what it is. I'm just going to go for it. Gordon and Sells. What could possibly go wrong? That is my final transfers. It does put me in a precarious situation for Gameweek 24, but I've kind of had enough of it. So, yeah, suddenly it looks much stronger, especially the midfield. The defense is still quite weak, but that's where I'll be focusing my efforts for double Gameweek 24. And maybe with a hit or so, I could buy Arne Slot with the Assman chip in Gameweek 24, and I could just get maybe a Trent, Konate, or Virgil van Dijk to bolster this position. But yeah, there's a lot of questions to be answered in the next few weeks. Jackson to Gakpo is definitely an option for me in Gameweek 23. I'll consider that when the time comes, but I've pulled the trigger. And actually in the poll, and I did see that just before making the transfers, Roll the Transfer has won it. And the transfers I've made, Raya and Sarter, Sells and Gordon, are narrowly behind. But yeah, I also want to tackle what's right in front of me. And yeah, Gordon's a great option for Gameweek 23 against Southampton away. I'm quite happy to keep him when the fixtures get tough around Gameweek 27. So my transfers are made. There we go. We are locked in. Yeah, Saliba out, by the way. Yeah, I've seen those rumours fly around. He wasn't spotted in training yesterday, so it's very concerning. It's been that kind of season for Arsenal where, oh, Ben White and Tomiyasu are back. Finally some positive news. Oh, Saliba could be out. So it's just that kind of season. Arsenal need to find a way and adapt. They need to get the win. Otherwise, it's looking very grim for their title hopes. But hopefully they can push Liverpool all the way. That'd be interesting. Like last season, we got a free horse race until May, essentially. Hopefully we can get at least Arsenal versus Liverpool, a straight shootout, but it's not looking too good. Do you think Gordon or Mbeumo is better from Gameweek 23? Well, Gordon has Southampton away that week, but I'd probably say Mbeumo. I think timing is very important. I think this week with, obviously, Gordon facing Bournemouth, which isn't great, but that's much better than Liverpool at home on paper. Yeah, I'd probably say Mbeumo. Konate or Munoz this game week? I would go for... Yeah, it would be Munoz. I think both of them concede, by the way. Play Hall or Robinson? Obviously, I know the deadline has passed, but I would have played Robinson. Would you sell any of Elanga, Mbeumo, Ahmad for Gordon? Well, this week, maybe Ahmad, but otherwise, just keep what you have. Long-term, Ahmad over Elanga all day long, but of course, the Southampton fixture looks very appealing, and I do think United could slip up against Brighton. I'm doing a differential league on a different account. Best captain under 15% ownership. So who's your captain this week? I'd be very interested. Maybe Elanga? Bench one of Munoz, Hall, Sarr, and Joao Pedro. Yeah, from those four, I would have benched Munoz. As covered earlier, it's between him and Sarr. Captain Haaland over Salah to chase rank. I think Haaland's a good option anyway, to be quite honest with you. Well done, Dylan. Thank you, Maria. I appreciate it. Is that in relation to my transfers, which were very late, or I don't know, but thank you. I heard from a friend. Yeah, it's been kind of flying around Twitter yesterday. Diaz or Joao Pedro to start? It would have been Diaz, but Joao Pedro, good record against United, even dating back to his time at Watford. Sells, Sanchez, Trent, Konate, Robinson, Kirkes, Colwill, Salah, Mbeumo, Ahmad, Sarr, Palmer, Isak, Wood, Raul, bench. Who to transfer again? -4. Well, the deadline is passed. We can talk about transfers in the reaction stream maybe today, if that goes ahead. If not, I'll try to do it tomorrow, but I'll keep you posted on that. But yeah, with your team, you're looking pretty well set for the double. You've got a triple up in Liverpool. You might want to buy... Well, you've got Sells already, but maybe Pickford or Mikalenko, which isn't really necessary, in my opinion. Last minute, I benched Gabriel for Robinson. I would have done the same thing, and I did say this earlier today. I love Gabriel, big game player, but Aston Villa's a tough opponent. FPL Challenge, yeah, people asking about that. We'll go back to that screen. So I've currently gone for Sells, Castagna, Milenkovic, Elanga, and Raul Jimenez. That is my current setup. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But I don't think there's too much to discuss. I'm not a big fan of the captain. I might go for Elanga instead. But yeah, if Jimenez starts against Leicester, it's not too shabby. I'll have to say that. You know what? I'm actually going to go for Elanga captain for now. It's something a bit different. You know, why not? So there we go. And I actually want to show you quickly again. So I have made my bed here with my transfers. So we can forget about that. I've made the Gordon and Sells moves. So in Gameweek 23, and by the way, let's see if that's... So yeah, that was my team before. That's my team now. Okay, that's all good. Nothing sinister. Nice. So Gameweek 23, I could buy Gakpo for Jackson still. And then bench Semenyo, for example. That is a potential thing I can do. If not, I roll. And then in Gameweek 34, I could go for something like this. But there are some glaring issues still, even with 2 free transfers being made. So as you can see, maybe buying Sells and Gordon isn't great for that double. But a hit for Veltman, well, from Veltman to Mikolenko is possible for me, or Colwill. It's just not really worth a hit, though, I think, for Mikolenko. It's really not. One other thing I could consider, instead of tripling up on Liverpool this way, I could maybe go for a cheaper forward instead. Could be Joao Pedro or somebody else, and then go for Arne Slot as my assistant manager. That could really work well for me. And I don't necessarily need Trent, right? That's not something that has to be locked in. But yeah, Trent will be in for Gabriel, by the way, and that's not exactly like... It's not really an ideal transfer, I think, despite Arsenal facing Man City that week, because they've got West Ham and Leicester shortly afterwards. There's a lot to discuss here. And ultimately, there are certain transfers I should have made originally, like Gordon, who I talked about for many weeks. And I've been late to the party. If he blanks against Bournemouth, it'll feel pretty bad, I think, especially if Southampton also score against Forest. But then next week, Southampton away for Gordon looks very promising, and Sells is a kind of a set and forget goalkeeper for the rest of the season, and it might help me navigate Gameweek 29. Forest will likely feature in that game against Ipswich Town. So there's a lot to discuss really with the doubles and blanks. They will throw some curveballs, but overall, yeah, I wasn't fully committed to these transfers this week, and I've pulled the trigger. It's about time I buy Gordon. Twister Parky says, RIP to Dennis Law and Tony Book. Yeah, I didn't hear about the Tony Book one, but yeah. Also, David Lynch, the director. Dennis Law, such a legend of the game. You are correct about that. It's late, but start 2, Castagna, possible clean sheet, Rodgers, Semenyo, or JP. I'm not even saying this to make you feel better. I would have done the same thing. Joao Pedro, solid record against United. I wouldn't be surprised if he did it again. I started Robinson, Milenkovic, and Hall ahead of Gabriel. Understandable. I would have probably started Gabriel over Hall, but that's a subjective thing. I think the others ahead of Gabriel is right. Locked captain on Salah last second. Yeah, it's not something I recommend, last minute transfers or captaincy things, but I've done it myself, so I can't really talk. Which players I want to buy for the upcoming double game weeks? Gakpo up front, Trent, Salah goes without saying, of course, Pickford in goal, Mikolenko, and that's about it really. Other Liverpool players would include Diaz in the midfield, Virgil van Dijk and Konate, but it's all about budget, how many transfers you have available, and the weaknesses in your team, because for some people it might be best to double up on Liverpool defensively, even though the ideal setup would be 2 attackers with Salah and Gakpo. So yeah, those are kind of the best options. If I had to rank them, Salah's obviously first. I'd go for Trent second and Gakpo third. And let's not forget Arne Slot with the assmanship. Hey Dylan, it's been red after red arrow with a team that I think is amazing. Sells, Gabriel, Hall, Konate, Mikolenko, Van den Berg, Salah, Palmer, Gordon, and Mbeumo, Semenyo, Wood, Isak, Jackson. I've literally got an identical team. Yours is slightly better because you've got Konate and Mikolenko, which sets you up well for Gimmick 24. But yeah, I mean, apart from those two and what, Hall, our team is practically identical, which is kind of strange. Yeah, look, captaincy is really important this season. You know, for those that went for Salah last week, like myself, which was a mistake, yeah, it can be frustrating, especially if you were on Isak for most of the week. But I think getting that spot on is also crucial. It's a very competitive season. A lot of engaged managers, of course. Diaz or Trent for the double game week? Yeah, Trent for me. Chase says, hey Dylan, I have all my chips and was planning the triple captain of Salah in 24, but I'm unsure about the best time to use the assistant manager chip. Could you help me decide? Look, I'm keeping my options open myself. I've used the triple captaincy already, so maybe I can... Look, I would rather use the triple captaincy in 24, if I'm being completely honest. If I had it, I'd be using on Salah in 24 and not overcomplicating it. I do like Arne Slot for that double. It's not the best set of fixtures against Bournemouth, who have been good this season. And then Everton, which is a Merseyside derby, the last ever one at Goodison Park. There's a lot of potential issues there. But you've also got the possibilities of Pep around Game Week 36. You'll have a double, which includes Southampton away. And then you've got Bournemouth at home in the following game week. That's another good opportunity. No matter what you do not use that chip in Game Week 37 because the chip is going to be active for 3 weeks, right? And if you use it in 37, you only have it active for 2 weeks. So you restrict the ceiling of that chip already. So I'd definitely be using it no later than Game Week 36. That goes without saying. And I think it will become very popular to use it around Game Week 31 to 33, where, of course, there will be a double game week in 33. But in my case, if I can find a way and I've got the budget available, which I have made more difficult with my transfers today, I think Arne Slot in Game Week 24 is a kind of solid, safe option. So that is what I'm kind of looking at. But if I had the triple captaincy, I'd be using on Salah, and that would be a priority over Arne Slot. That's my personal preference. My captain was Wood, says Martin. Good luck, mate. I wish you the best. I mean, some points would be nice. His effective ownership is crazy, though. Not crazy like Salah levels, but yeah, I won't get too many gains from him if he does end up hauling. I started Robinson over Sarr. I agree with you. I would have done the same thing as well. Transferred out Raya and Sarr for Sols and Ahmad. I've done something identical, but instead I've gone for Gordon, which might be a big problem for me budget-wise over the coming weeks, but yeah, it is what it is, right? I think maybe avoiding Gakpo and going from Jackson to, I don't know, just a cheaper option, a much cheaper option might be my play, which allows me to buy Trent at the back. There's a lot of things that are up in the air for me now, but it is what it is. Rolled my transfer for the first time in ages, but hoping Palmer plays as in my captain this game week. Yeah, I rolled last week. Slight regrets there, as usual. And this week, I mean, yeah, I just pulled the trigger. I was actually quite calm with my transfers earlier this season. I was rolling. Now I just keep pulling the trigger, and it has resulted in some problems. I think Palmer will play, and hopefully he does fairly well. If the active assistant manager chip and buyer manager, will the manager be the same for 3 straight game weeks or change the manager in the 3 game weeks? So you can make transfers with the assistant manager chip. So you can go for Arne Slot in game week 24, then move him to Arteta and then Maresca until 26. But yeah, they do count towards your transfers. They take up your budget. But once, or should I say, the first time you activate the chip, you aren't using a transfer, of course, to activate that chip. But once you make a move in the manager position, you are using part of your free transfers. And as for, if I'm understanding your question correctly, if a team changes their manager, you will still have that team and their manager in your squad until or unless you make a move yourself. Loving the Gordon and Sells transfers. I have both, and both have been rewarding for me. Yeah, I'd have kind of not been too bullish on Forest in terms of long-term investment. They've got some tough games coming up, but yeah, Raya just hasn't been doing it for me. And I do think Arsenal concede against Villa. Couple that with Sells facing Southampton, being fairly fixture-proof, the highest ceiling of any goalkeeper this season along with Pickford. I think it made sense, but there could be a slight regret for me in terms of not just waiting a few weeks buying Pickford. And also with the Gordon transfer, it does restrict me a lot in terms of buying Trent and those Liverpool doublers. But as much as we all love double game weeks, they can sometimes be overrated. Let's not forget that. So yeah, look, I have to say with this chip, it's an interesting idea, but it's also very complicated when you do explain it to, new people, or you just explain it. And I do think with FPL, the simplicity of it is what's kind of the best aspect of the game. Look, essentially with the assistant manager chip, it will form part of your triple ups. So if you've got Gakpo, Salah, and Trent, you aren't going to be able to buy Arne Slot and activate that chip in Gameweek 24 unless you sell one of those players. They also take part of your budget. So you need 1.5 million in the bank for Arne Slot, and all the prices have been covered already on my channel. Actually, I showed the prices when they were first revealed. Also, so once you activate the chip and you pick a manager, if you decide to make a transfer in the following week, that takes part of your free transfers. So I think having some available could be very useful whenever you decide to use it. Is there anything else I haven't covered? Well, the point system is probably very important. So let me cover up the most important things. So it's active from Gameweek 24, and coincidentally, that's going to be the first double Gameweek of the season with Liverpool and Everton. It's going to be active for 3 game weeks, so you can't use any other chip during that time frame, and that's why Gameweek 24 to 26 could be a nice time to play it. So in terms of the point scoring system, so you pick Arne Slot and Liverpool win a game, they will get 6 points for that victory. And in a double game week, of course, you boost your chances of getting some big returns. If your team draws, you will get 3 points, and a goal scored by the team is 1 point per goal. A clean sheet results in 2 points. As for the table bonus, which is very interesting, if you pick a manager of a team that's kind of low down in the table, you have that kind of high risk, high reward factor. So if that team beats an opponent that is ranked 5 places or more higher in the league table, you will get plus 10 points and 16 in total, coupled with the 6 points for a win. A draw will be plus 5 points and then 8 in total. Of course, with a draw, you get 3 points anyway. And then, like I mentioned before, transfers. Choosing a manager does not cost a transfer, but then changing it will result in a transfer being made. The club quota does exist, as I covered before. The chip limit, only 1 chip can be used per game week. So throughout that 3 game week period, you can't use any other chip. The bench boost, free hit, wildcard, you name it, none of them can be used. You can't triple captain Salah and also get Arne Slot in game week 24. And as for the cost, all the managers cost between 0.5 million to 1.5 million. You might look at that and think, well, you know, it's only a 1 million difference, you know, but it does add up because you also have your 50-man squad, and that will make it more complicated to buy your ideal players for a double and also just your ideal players in general. So you can't captain a manager, that goes without saying. And if a manager leaves the club, which I talked about briefly a few minutes ago, the points are still based on their original club's performance. So hopefully that's all covered. That's kind of in depth. I can make a video about this kind of dedicated, especially before Gameweek 24, and maybe a chip strategy guide, so to speak, at least discussing my initial transfer plans. Eze or Raul says ATL's AM. It would be Raul. Sar news. He was in training yesterday. I think he's going to start, but there is a slight chance, and I say a slight chance, that he is on the bench and makes a cameo. And I wanted to avoid that. I bought Anthony Gordon and I just made the transfer. I'm kind of done with him. But let's actually go to my predictions. So here we go. Once again, Newcastle Bournemouth. I'm going to go for 2-1 Newcastle. Brentford versus Liverpool, 3-1 to the Reds. Leicester versus Fulham, 2-1 Fulham. I would not be surprised though if they drop points. They're a bit iffy against the worst clubs. West Ham versus Crystal Palace. I've gone for a 2-2 draw. I went for 1-1 originally. I might change this. Yeah, 2-2 draw here between West Ham and Palace. Arsenal versus Aston Villa, 1-1 is my current prediction. Everton Spurs, I'm also thinking about 1-1. Everton are winless in 6 games though. Tottenham, they're such a strange team. Very inconsistent this season. They've got a good record against Everton, generally speaking, but not so much at Goodison Park. You know what? I'm going to go for Everton 1, Spurs 0. Let's see how that sticks. Man United Brighton, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Nottingham Forest Southampton, 2-0 Forest. Ipswich 2, Man City 4. I'll stick with that. Bit of a crazy prediction. And then Chelsea 2, Wolves 1. With the assumption that Cunha and Palmer both start. But yeah, Difficult with these predictions, right? You don't know the lineups and you're kind of going in blind. That's the point of them. But that's what I've gone for right now. Hopefully I'm wrong about some of them, especially the Arsenal game, and they get 3 points. And we have an interesting title race until the end of the season. Just Park, he has gone for Newcastle 1, Brentford 1. I'm guessing that's, yeah, Bournemouth 1. Brentford 1, Liverpool 2, Leicester 1, Fulham 2, West Ham 2, Palace 3, Arsenal 2, Villa 1. Hope you're right. Everton 1, Spurs 1. I went for that originally. Maybe I should have stuck with that. Man United 2, Brighton 3. Hopefully. Good luck. Forest 3, Saints 0, Ipswich 1, City 2, Chelsea 4, Wolves 1. Interesting predictions there. Will Marlin and Marmoush be added as midfielders or attackers? Well, Daniel Marlin has been confirmed. He's a 5.5 million midfielder. I think Marmoush will be a midfielder, personally. He is a winger. He can play anywhere alongside the front line, but yeah, I think he'll be a midfielder. I said 7 million earlier. I'm not so sure if that will stick, but yeah, if you check FPL now, well, once the game's updated, he is a 5.5 million mid. Thank you, Chase. I appreciate it. Easy99 says, what if a goalkeeper plays a single game week, score more points than goalkeeper who plays the double game week? Well, yeah, look, that's possible, right? Double game weeks can be overrated, and Pickford has Leicester and Liverpool at home. It's an okay double. You know, Leicester's a good fixture, but then Liverpool kind of pushes it back down. And Everton did keep a clean sheet against Liverpool last time out at Goodison Park. But different circumstances, right? Liverpool were kind of tailing off at that stage. They were, you know, kind of done. They lost against Palace at home. And they had a pretty poor winless streak. But yeah, look, single game at goalkeepers, any position, it can happen. So that's why you don't need to go gung-ho and get 5-6 doublers. But having said that, it's better than having single game options on paper. Thank you, BL, for gifting a membership. Massively appreciated, mate. And all the best of luck for Game Week 22. If you have any questions yourself, let me know. Also did Sanchez to Sells. Easiest decision of my life. I hope it pays off in the long term, not just this week against Southampton, but also in those tougher games. But Forest have been brilliant. Thank you, FPL Diamond. I appreciate it. We are close to 200 likes. I'm not sure how far we are, but if we can get to that, it'd be massively appreciated. It pushes up the algorithm. So yeah, if we can get close to that, thank you. And also, in terms of subscribers, making slow gains towards 32,000 subs. Yeah, I think by next month, 32,000 is a possibility with the UCL fantasy content giving us a big push. I benched Gabriel and played Rodgers. That's fair. I did say in a lot of cases, you know, Rodgers versus Saliba or Timber, I would have started Rodgers. I think Gabriel's slightly different because of the attacking threat. Yeah, that happens, mate. I used to miss deadlines all the time before making videos, so yeah, I feel your pain. Salah's the best captain this season due to the performance. Only Forest broke Salah. Yeah, he's blanked only 3 times this season. Palace away, and then both games against Forest. Yeah, still a bit gutted about not going for Isak, but it's my fault. Have a good one. Thanks as always. Yeah, the plan is to do a reaction stream tonight and then record UCL fantasy videos tomorrow and on Monday. And then, of course, FPL videos throughout the week. UCL fantasy deadline stream on Tuesday. Darius21 says planning on downgrading either Gabriel to Hall or Van Dijk to Kanate to fund for Semenyo to Mbumo. Did Bruno to Gordon this week for some funds too. Yeah, it's good to think about funds, you know, especially if you want to use, you know, the chip on Arne Slot and also just the triple up on Liverpool. So it's good to be mindful of that. Gabriel to Hall, Van Dijk to Kanate. Apologies. Difficult one to say, actually. I think long term you'd rather keep Gabriel, and he could feature in Game Week 29, albeit it would be against Chelsea in that blank. Something else to kind of weigh up, but if I had to pick one, it's probably Van Dijk to Kanate, which isn't great. I mean, Van Dijk is nailed on for the double. He's got a good record in double game weeks, and he can score a goal. I think the best Everton player to bring in is Pickford, and that's one of my concerns with buying Matt Sells this week, which looks great in Game Week 22, but maybe not the best long-term move. So there's a lot I need to weigh up, actually, and maybe this time next week I find myself thinking, you know what, I need to wildcard. So yeah, I wanted to use the Ass chip in Game Week 24, but now Moyes in and one of the fixtures City, I don't want to use a transfer on that. Yeah, I get that. I get that. Game Week 24 it'd be Arne Slot for me, but a lot of people might have tripled up on Liverpool already, or they're using the triple captaincy chip, so it's different for everybody. Will the chip be staying long enough? I couldn't tell you for sure. It might depend on the reception to it by the end of the season, but yeah, it's a weird one. Look, I don't think it's a bad idea to have new things in the game. I just think for new players as well, FPL tends to be quite casual, and explaining it to someone who is kind of new to the game is kind of like very complicated. With a bench boost, it's so simple. All the players on your bench score points and they contribute towards your gaming score. Triple captaincy, your captain's points are tripled rather than doubled. But with this, it's like, oh, but this or that. It's kind of difficult and long-winded. Start your boss light ahead of Pedro. Captain Palmer, I can see this going so wrong already. Yeah, I would have started Joao Pedro over Szoboszlai personally, but maybe you're onto something there. And Palmer captain could be a fantastic differential shout. I think he's going to start. Hopefully you're doing well too. It's all going well on my end. Got scammed by my friend to hold Sanchez for like 8 weeks. Yeah, look, I can't remember when. I did recommend Sanchez at one stage where he was doing fairly well, but he's just been a very poor asset, and he got benched in certain matches like Southampton. So yeah, it's just not been good. Hey Dylan, it's been red after red. Yeah, I did. I mentioned your question earlier, Duarte. I highlighted it as well. Yeah, it's a very similar team to myself. Something I realized after buying Sells and Gordon myself this week. Isak captain, all the best. Let's see if he can beat the early kickoff curse. Nick says Flecken, Colwill, Gabriel, Borro, Salah, captain, Foden, Palmer, Murphy, Isak, Joao Pedro, Jimenez. Decent stuff. I mean, Flecken, he's got good fixtures coming up soon, but not a big fan of him. But the rest is very strong. Borro, you might want to go off despite some good fixtures too. Aston Villa struggled to score against Arsenal in the reverse fixture, and they barely scored against Everton. True. But against Arsenal, they should have scored. I mean, David Raya did a wonderful double save. There are rumours of Saliba missing out. Not to mention Arsenal in recent weeks haven't kept clean sheets, and they're having this issue of not scoring their chances. The stadium gets nervous. The players get a bit nervous. Then they concede with one of the first big chances that they let in. So, look, Arsenal can keep a clean sheet against Villa, but I just have a sneaky feeling they'll get a... Maybe not a result. I think they will, but I think Villa will get a goal. How to activate the chip? Well, it's not available yet, but from Gameweek 24 onwards, you just click the button. I don't want to sound like a twat, but if you go on the app or the website, if you just scroll up a little bit to where all the chips are, just click any of these. I'm not going to play it, by the way. But yeah, once it's available, you click on it and it'll say activate. So yeah, that's how you do it. You can even do it in the transfer section, if I'm not mistaken, and once you're absolutely sure, you confirm it. If a goalkeeper gets sent off and an outfield player goes in goal, can he get points for saves and penalty saves? That's actually a great question. No is the answer. That's only for goalkeepers. Yeah, that's not really happened. I mean, what's the last time we've had a goalkeeper red card and an outfield player coming in? But yeah, the answer is no. Chase says, transferring out Haaland, Castagna, Sanchez and Welbeck for Isak, Van Dijk, Sells, Pickford and a 9 million forward. I'm not entirely sure about these moves and would love to hear your thoughts on the transfers. Yeah, for those with Haaland, I think he's going to be a very popular sell in Gameweek 23 or 24. It just opens up so many possibilities to double or triple up on Liverpool, get Pickford. I think in your case though, mate, if you are buying a goalkeeper beyond Gameweek 22, so looking at Gameweek 24, you're going to go for Pickford, right? I think that's probably the best move for you. But yeah, Sells is still fine to buy, by the way. He's still a good long-term asset. Overall, I like those transfers. I have to say that. Really good transfers. Maybe Trent over Van Dijk if you can afford it, but that's just chasing upside. Van Dijk is slightly safer. Omar says, I benched Mateta, started Wood and Isak. I did Enzo to Elanga and Verbruggen to Dubravka with 2 free transfers. Yeah, look, with Dubravka, I've been talking about this for a while. In isolation, he's the best budget goalkeeper in the game as your kind of second choice. The problem is Nick Pope, has kind of been knocking on the door. There were reports he's going to return by January, but it hasn't happened yet. So the lineups are out. Newcastle, Dubravka, Livramento, Botman, Byrne, Hall, Guimaraes, Tonali, Joelinton, Murphy, Isak, Gordon. Bournemouth, Arrizabalaga, Cook, Zabani, Howson, Kirkes, Christie, Adams, Brooks, Kluivert, Semenyo, and Ouattara. Thank you very much for the lineups. I was going to show them, but I think that pretty much speaks for itself. No surprises there. Kepa's back for Travers. Do you think Ipswich will stay up? No, I don't. They've been fairly decent in recent weeks, though. They gave Arsenal a good game. They also got the win against Chelsea. They've had some very good results, obviously that big win against Tottenham away and Wolves shortly afterwards. And they've been fairly competitive in a lot of matches. Thank you, Demand the Myth, the Legend. Good night from here, Dylan. Just realised you changed your name from Dylan RCM. Been a long-time viewer. I have changed it quite a while ago, but I've still got the same channel logo, and you can still find me by typing Dylan RCM, basically, but I'm not even sure if it has made a massive difference. Maybe it has, I don't know. Difficult to judge. I wouldn't say a massive difference, but a slight change maybe. But yeah, I'm still the same person. I'm set on AM chip in 24, 25, or 26. Yeah, look, if I have enough money, I'll probably just find a way to get on a slot. That's my way of combating the, Liverpool triple ups and the Everton double ups and, 5, 6 double Gameweek players, and also the Salah triple captainers. And also Arteta needs a striker. Oh yeah, I mean, Arsenal have needed a striker for ages. Havertz did very well in the last calendar year, but he's not enough. And Gabriel Jesus, unfortunately, is injury prone. And of all the injuries Arsenal have right now, even Arteta admitted himself recently, finally, that Arsenal need to get some players in. So, yeah, who would I want? Isak is the dream, and hopefully it happens in the summer. But there's also Gyökeres, there's also Osimhen, who could be the best player to buy now. I think there is a release clause where Arsenal can activate it and buy him in this week in January, or at least get him on loan. I'd like Mbeumo as well as a forward option because Arsenal need a winger and a striker, in my opinion. And even after signing both, you could argue they also need another attacker and then a midfielder. Newcastle are full strength whilst Bournemouth are down to the bare bones. Their bench is full of academy players and a recalled Jebison. Yeah, you're right. I do think Newcastle will win. I went for 2-1, but I still think Bournemouth can cause problems like they did against Chelsea. And I know Newcastle and Chelsea are in different places at the moment, but I do think Bournemouth are a decent side regardless. The double in Gameweek 25 will be good for triple captain compared to Gameweek 24. Is this in reference to if Liverpool doubled in 25? Maybe if I misunderstood your question, apologies. I do think if Spurs Fulham double in 25, that's great for the Assman chip, the assistant manager chip, because you get 2 doubles with Arne Slot and then Marco Silva Postecoglou in back-to-back weeks. FPL should add FPL Predictor next season. Yeah, they should. I'm not sure why they haven't done it already. But yeah, new CL, for example, is a bit of fun. They have changed it this season, although I'm not sure if they've done it for the better, as it's now Predict 6. Bench Gabriel for Munoz. I wouldn't have done that personally, but I did say earlier I think Villa score, so it's not the worst decision in the world either way, irrespective of the outcome. Sanchez is not enough as Chelsea fans, but Maresca believes his potential. Rumours about Kobel top target next season. Yeah, I think Kobel's a good goalkeeper, very pivotal in Borussia Dortmund's run to the Champions League final last season. He's an upgrade on Sanchez. Yeah, Maresca from the summer, reports indicated that he loves Sanchez, but the Chelsea fans certainly don't. Yeah, I said this before when people were asking me, are Chelsea title challengers? And I wasn't being disrespectful, I was just being quite honest. I just don't think the defence and the goalkeeper are good enough to mount a serious title challenge. And of course, the attack is still good, but yeah, the defence is just not good enough. Thanks, have a good weekend. Likewise, Adil. Any reaction stream today, tomorrow? The plan is to do one tonight. I'll keep you posted, but there's a kind of a lot in the way. I also need to prepare FPL content for the week and also UCL Fantasy, which is next up on the agenda. But if I have some time, I'll try to do one tonight and then record the UCL Fantasy videos over the weekend and also going into Monday. How is it that Gomez went down in price some weeks ago? He was red flagged. Now I can't have Konate. Well, I'll be honest, I don't know the exact ins and outs about price changes and when they're locked, but I'm fairly certain there are stages when a player is suspended and they become red flagged, they become price locked as a result. But with injuries, it's slightly different. They can still go down in price. They might be price locked for a few days or a week, but I think fairly afterwards or shortly afterwards, they do have that unlocked and they can go down in price. Darius says Van Dijk to Konate is, I guess. Yeah, look, Gabriel to Lewis Hall next week when Newcastle face Southampton away looks decent, but then it's Fulham at home, you've got Forest, you've got Arsenal, City. It's not great for Newcastle, to be fair, for the defenders, but yeah, and with Gabriel, good long-term fixtures. He might be a great option for you in Double Gameweek 29, unless you're backing Arsenal to make a come back in the Carabao Cup semi-final. Very unlikely, I have to say. There's a lot to kind of weigh up, to be fair. Yeah, I can't lie. It's just I can't be asked to say assistant manager chip, but I'll just keep saying that. I have Salah and Trent. Would you bring in Gakpo or Alisson? A Gakpo for me. It's also team dependent because if you've got Sanchez in goal, but up front you've got Isak, I don't know, just a really good front line, Chris Wood. It might be easier for you to go for Alisson, and it's an upgrade, but I think in most cases you go for Gakpo. Though Haaland signed a 9-year deal, 115 months, are City convicted the charges will be dropped, or convinced? I'm not so sure. I mean, they might have some sense about it, but there has been no verdict yet. They've been doing the deliberations, they've been gathering all the evidence, and a verdict will come very soon. But I'll be honest, I don't think City will face the punishments they probably should, or at least, it's all assumptions, right? I just don't think City will get the big punishments a lot of people are expecting. Niall Quinn, only outfield player I know in Prem to go in goal and save a penalty. Yeah, and in terms of just to come on the pitch, like John Terry's done it before. I think Ferdinand's done it as well. Yeah, that's a great stat, by the way. What if Arsenal pull off a move for Benjamin Sesko in this window? Sesko's got a lot of potential, but he's very raw. I don't think that's enough to win the title. It's better than nothing, don't get me wrong. But I'm fairly sure his stats are similar to Havertz this season in terms of goals. He had a great start to the season. Then he's kind of tailed off in recent weeks, especially in the Champions League. But he's young, he's going to get better. He can develop into a top striker at Arsenal. But I'd rather buy, if I'm being honest, Isak, Gyökeres, just proven players who can deliver instantly and push Arsenal to the next level. It's about time Arsenal get that superstar signing up front and push them over the line. That's the way I look at it. I bought Aina this week. Any thoughts? Yeah, look, I've been a bit apprehensive about Forest assets, even the defenders this week, because shortly afterwards you've got some tough games. Bournemouth, Fulham, you've got Man City, Arsenal, etc. Newcastle. Not to mention, it could prevent you from buying certain players like Trent, I don't know, Gakpo, these doublers in 24, even Pickford, and that's a problem I'm finding myself. But in isolation this week, it's a great move, and I think Aina's a good long-term hold. He's also going to feature for you in Gameweek 29 against Ipswich Town. That's the likely scenario. But yeah, there are some kind of tough games in between. Gakpo for Pedro next game week? Yes, I like that. City will get away with all of it. I agree. They've got some very good lawyers. No chance Newcastle would sell Isak. I'm guessing you mean to Arsenal. Well, they've set a, 150 million price tag? Yeah, if Arsenal match it and the player wants to go, I think he'll go. What are the chances of double Gameweek 25? Well, if Spurs reach the Carabao Cup final, their game against Fulham in 29, they'll blank, and it could be moved forward to Gameweek 25, and they'll both double. I personally think Liverpool will make the comeback at Anfield. I'd be very surprised if Spurs go through. So I just don't see that being the case, but it is a possibility that's worth mentioning. Already used the TC, so as AM chip user, this could be huge. Yeah, same here. I've also used it, but yeah, if results go a certain way, it could just really be so appealing, I think, for those looking to use the AM chip soon. I think Slot, then going to Silva, Postecoglou could be a fantastic, at least in terms of the amount of games, for these teams and stuff. You get 4 games in 2 game weeks, and then you get 5 across 3. Looks amazing, of course. Do you think Isak will leave if Newcastle fail to qualify for Europe? I think so. I think Isak will leave Newcastle in the next year or so. It might not be this summer, but by, let's say, 2026, 2027, I think Isak will be at a new club. And it's just a question of, with Arsenal, of course, if they're ambitious enough and they've got the money and they're willing to spend it, just buy that superstar striker. My only concern with him is that he's quite injury prone. He hasn't gotten too many this season, but it's something worth mentioning. If he can stay fit, though, he can catapult a team like Arsenal to the title, for example. Twister Parky says, my challenge team is Dubravka, Castagna, Williams, Murphy, and Wood captain. Worried if Williams is out, but would be Moreno, right? Yes, it'd be Alex Moreno in. Only have 0.2 million in the bank. Could risk it and change Murphy to Elanga. Yeah, I'll be honest. If Williams starts, I might be slightly gutted that I didn't do Colwill to Williams instead, because it puts my defensive line in better shape this week Williams can be like my fifth defender until the blank, and then maybe if I decide to navigate that without the free hit, Williams could be perfect for it. And I also can do Raya to Pickford in a couple of weeks' time. Am I going to make sells to Pickford in Game Week 24? That's going to be very unlikely for me. So, yeah, we'll wait and see. With my challenge team, I also had Williams in one of my drafts, but I ended up selling him. I went to Castagna, actually, to fund the likes of Elanga in the midfield. Sold Joao Pedro to Mateta in the last minute. All the best, mate. I do like Mateta. My favourite forward to buy now is probably Gakpo, simply for the double, but I like Mateta against West Ham. Good to see you, LFC. Good luck, Dylan and everyone, likewise. Pretty sure Isak and Sesko are the top two candidates to replace Lewandowski as Barcelona's forward this summer. Well, yeah, you might be right. I think Sesko, I've seen those links. Not so much of Isak, though. But, yeah, look, there's going to be a lot of competition for these players. It's just a question of having the money up front, convincing the player to join the project and get the job done. Favorite January transfer this season, either EPL or outside EPL? Not too sure, to be fair. It might be Marmoush to City at the moment. It's a lot of money, though, and big wages we're talking about. If I'm not mistaken, 70 million euros. Also, massive, massive wages, like 300k a week. Yeah, I mean, I'd probably have to give this a good think, though. There's probably more to it. Konate and Salah and Gakpo for Liverpool double. Looks really strong. I think the best triple up is Trent instead of Konate, but Konate offers better value, arguably. If you can start both in the double, looks really good. I personally think we'll smoke Spurs at Anfield for the Cup. Yeah, I think Liverpool will score 3 or 4 goals in that game. Yeah. Lewis Dunk gone in goal for Sanchez. You're right about that. I forgot about it. Being behind for the second leg at Anfield is always a classic. Yeah, it's not going to end well, is it? Arteta likely to trust Havertz as a striker until the end of the season? If so, Arsenal will start to sign a striker from the 1st of January. Yeah, I'm sorry, look, it's not going to be enough for a title. Yeah, Arsenal need a striker. And Havertz is a good player. He's a decent squad option, but he can't be relied on week in, week out, because he's got moments like the last couple of games where he can miss some huge chances. Yeah, Gakpo is still a minute's risk, but Jota is a concern for Game Week 22. He's got a slight injury, and if this is more serious, I'd be very bullish on Gakpo for the double. Diaz is also ill with a sore throat, so I'm very confident about Gakpo this week. It might be different for Game Week 23 and also for the double, so maybe you're right. But assuming that Jota is out, or he's not fully fit and he's still going to be kind of wrapped in cotton wool, I'd be very confident about Gakpo. Funny enough, I have all these players you listed, Trent, Pickford, and the plan is Jackson to Gakpo for next week. Yeah, that's absolutely fine then. So you're in a stronger position than I am, because I've bought certain players that I should have bought a long time ago, like Gordon. And to fund that, I did Raya to sells, but it does leave me very short for the double, I think. But maybe it could be a blessing in disguise. Who knows? Football's a funny game. FPL can be a bit iffy. Jackson to Gakpo is still on radar for me, and I do recommend that as well for you. Isak is yet to sign a new contract at Newcastle, so there's a chance that he could move in the summer. To whom and for how much is the question. I think he'd suit Arsenal perfectly in terms of play style. I have said before, because of the injury record, that might put me off slightly in terms of splashing out 150 million, but I mean, would I rather Arsenal do that or do nothing and sign nobody, rely on Havertz and Jesus for months and one of them's injured for a year basically? No, I'd rather go for Isak, of course. Nico Williams is a benching risk once Danilo returns, even Alex Moreno. The thing is with Nico Williams, I do think he's first choice left back, but in games like Southampton, or even looking ahead to blank Game Week 29 against Ipswich Town, I would not be surprised if he was benched in one of those games, and that defeats the purpose of buying him in the first place, in my opinion. Challenge team in the other auto-pick athletic is Stolosic, Williams, Alanga, Raul, Pedro, captain. Nice. Very nice. Some very decent differential picks in there. The only one I don't like is the Leicester goalkeeper. Arteta is more fraudulent with Spanish players than Wenger with French. Well, let's not forget, Wenger signed a lot of great French players. Even some of the kind of worse ones, like Clichy, still pretty good, right? Diaby, top talent ruined by injuries. Vieira, Pires, Henry. I mean, I don't think Wenger was fraudulent with French players. Koscielny was a good player for Arsenal. Giroud was good ultimately, although he was frustrating at times. Arteta with Spanish players. Raya's been good, especially this season, so no complaints there. Marino, I think, has a lot of work to do. I think he's a good player, but he might not fit Arsenal, or at least not this system at the moment. Other Spanish players, Pablo Mari, yeah, obviously he was very short-term signing. And of course, Arsenal were in the mud back then. What other Spanish players have been signed? I can't remember. There's probably more, but they're escaping me. Yeah, maybe I'll tell with Spanish players. It's kind of a small sample size. I don't think we can judge that yet. It's just a thought. You reckon triple Forest defenders is a good long-term option in FPL? No. With their upcoming fixtures, I think one's enough. Yeah, I wouldn't be tripling up on them right now. A double up is viable still, but I'd rather just stick with one. Would Haaland, Salah, Palmer, Sells, Gavardio should give at 45 to 50 points this week? If not, it will be a disaster. Well, let's wait and see, right? I think the captaincy will be crucial for you. Zubimendi is not a priority. I slightly disagree. So, yeah, the striker's the priority. You're right about that, but let's also think about the long term. Thomas Partey's contract is running down, and he's going to be offloaded, I think. Jorginho has been linked to many clubs in January, and he's also another one that's not going to last forever. Zubimendi is a long-term transfer target for Arsenal. He suits the system, and to replace these options, I think he's a good signing. But sign Zubimendi and also get the top striker and a winger. I think that's what Arsenal need to do. Get all the players necessary, not just one piece of the jigsaw and leave another one still open. Terry says Watkins to Gakpo for the next week, as I have Isak and Wood and Salah and Van Dijk. Yeah, Watkins is a strange one, isn't it? But I think Gakpo is cheaper. Double game week, great fixture against Ipswich Town. Slight chance of rotation, but I think it's worth it. How do you assess Raya as a premium defender now? Not enough saves, no bonus points. When clean sheet, he's not in the bonus. And I saw his penalties. Yeah, look, Raya, he saved the penalty against West Ham last season. He was the hero in the shootout against Porto. But yeah, against Man United, I don't know what he was doing. It's like he had the Ramsdale, bloody, how do you say it? The ping, the high ping. He's just so slow with reacting to it. But yeah, you're right about the clean sheets and the bonus points. Earlier this season, Arsenal were keeping clean sheets and Raya was getting 1, 2, 3 bonus. So that's why he was the best goalkeeper in the first 5 game weeks. Ever since I got him, though, he has been pretty meh. So I get what you're saying there. I do think Sells and Pickford are upgrades and they're cheaper, so it is worth that sort of transfer. But Arsenal's fixtures do get better soon. The only reason I sold him this week was to fund Gordon and replace Ismail Assar. I captain Isak, am I cooked? I don't think so. There is the early kickoff curse. I think Bournemouth are a good team despite all their injuries. They are depleted and their bench is quite weak, but Isak could still score. Is Ange in trouble to be sacked with lots of injuries, defensive problems? Oh yeah, I mean, Spurs could go down to 15th if Everton beat them and let's say Palace get a result against West Ham. So it's looking bleak for them. 11 defeats, irrespective of the situation of injuries, is not good enough. And they have to find a way to navigate that. You can sympathise with him with the injuries though. And I think defensively, they've just had issues all season, even the goalkeeper. And look, I do think Ange has good things about him. He started brilliantly at Tottenham, but I always saw vulnerabilities tactically and also defensively, which is why when they were top of the league last year in November, October, I said on Twitter, like, they're going to fall off, let them enjoy the moment. But I never expected this drop off. If they have a good run in the Cups, though, I think that would save him in terms of his job. Reaching the Carabao Cup final will be huge. I mean, withstanding that Liverpool pressure at Anfield would be some task, actually. And I think they've got a chance in the FA Cup or the Europa League to go far in those competitions. Winning any of them, I think, saves him his job. Otherwise, yeah, I think he's in big trouble. I have Trent and Salah. Do I get Gakpo for Jackson in the double or get Slot? Might go Gabriel to Tarkowski for 1 week and then reverse. Yeah, I wouldn't really recommend that, to be fair. I'd just keep Gabriel. And could Gabriel get a clean sheet against C? It's not likely, but it's possible. And he got a goal against them in the reverse fixture. So I don't think Gabriel to Tarkowski is worth it. As for your first question, I like Gakpo a lot, but Arne Slot would be slightly ahead of him in the pecking order. If using Slot for the Assman chip in Gameweek 24 to 26, would you go Salah and another Liverpool attacker or Salah and a Liverpool goalkeeper or defender? Great question. I thought about it myself. I still prefer Gakpo, to be quite honest with you. And you do get a few clean sheet points technically. through Salah, of course, and with Arne Slot, you get a few bonus points for keeping a clean sheet. But yeah, look, Trent. Then again, look, let me put it this way: if you can buy Trent, he would be the priority for me over Gakpo. Otherwise, Van Dijk versus Gakpo is very close. I'd still lean towards the Dutch striker and the Dutch winger, Gakpo, instead. Will you be watching the Newcastle game, Dylan? Yeah, I think I will. Should be interesting, but if I see Gordon get injured or I just jinx him, I might log off and Semenyo gets a goal on my bench, I might retire. I am playing EFL Fantasy at the moment, doing okay at 1k, and I missed the game week. Anyway, last night James Trafford saved 2 penalties and got a clean sheet. Wow. I can just only imagine that happening in FPL. That'd be amazing, but that's really good. I'm just wondering how many players are actually in that game, but 1k is a good rank regardless. If Angie gets sacked, could be benefited for my country since his ex-assistant is now the head coach of my country. Reunion back to the team. I actually didn't know that, so... which country is this, by the way? I think... Is it Kenya? I'm sorry if I'm being a bit... how do I say? Naive or ignorant? Oh, Asian Cup, you said. Okay, Asian Cup. So yeah, it's not going to be Kenya. Who's more likely to get an upset this weekend out of Bournemouth, Brentford, and Everton? Everton. I think Bournemouth will be second and Brentford third. His ex-assistant just got hired in January, says Easy99. Oh, in January? Malaysia. Yeah, there's a lot of Malaysian FPL managers. Also, my viewers, Malaysia's always up there in the top 5. What's your football opinion you have that might raise a few eyebrows? You don't have to answer. Well, I probably have plenty, to be fair, but I don't know. I also don't want to offend too many people. I don't give a crap, to be fair. I'm just trying to think, like, is it too controversial? I personally think Messi's a much, much, much better footballer than Cristiano Ronaldo. Is that maybe one that raises some eyebrows? Maybe. So that could be one. Terry says Gakpo, Ahmad, Rogers, Robinson, and Aina play to. Please check the fixtures. Oh, don't worry, I've got a good idea of the fixtures, don't worry. Next week is Gakpo for sure. I would consider Rogers, actually, next week. But definitely Gakpo against Ipswich Town. The only concern is, will he start? I didn't have Trafford, though. I think EFL player base about 2 million. Wow, that's actually more than UCL Fantasy, isn't it? That's insane. Wow, and UCL Fantasy is a very underrated game for me. Chase says 100% agree. Look, there's going to be some people who don't. It's just an opinion. New coach says Easy99. Fair enough. Murphy was scoring points for fun until I transferred him in. I might retire. Look, I'm just saying it now. Gordon's going to blank. I bought him in. I'm going to jinx him. But he's got Southampton away next. Surely he doesn't blank there as well, right? Yeah, let's wait and see. But all I'm saying is, if Sells and Gordon both blank my 2 transfers in this week, yeah, I'm just going to regret it big time, especially if the likes of Semenyo on my bench gets a big return, because ultimately, rolling would have been fantastic, and it would have put me in a great position for Double Gameweek 24, where I could buy Mikalenko, Pickford, Trent, and Gakpo, or get Arne Slot with the assistant manager chip. But we'll talk more about that in the future weeks, and hopefully it goes well, right? Hopefully. And as Lager says, game over. Thank you everyone for tuning in. It has been a pleasure talking to you for the past few hours. If you haven't already, smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's try to get this stream to over 200 likes. Let's keep on pushing towards new goals, like 32,000 subscribers. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below. Blue Sky, Patreon, Championships, Discord server, FPL League, Drafthound, and Spotify can also be found there. And you can get early access to my videos by becoming a member or a patron by clicking the join button on YouTube. Also hit that notification bell so you never miss a single upload. And it's not just FPL content coming up in the next week with the transfer tips, best wildcard team, team selection, and the reaction stream, but there's also going to be UCL fantasy videos with the wildcard limitless squads, the team selection, and the deadline stream on Tuesday. Be sure not to miss any of that, and I wish you all the best of luck for Gameweek 22 and the rest of the season. Richard says, hey Dylan, aside from FPL and UCL Fantasy, have you ever played any other fantasy football games? Sky Fantasy Football. And of course, this season they actually ended it. I did play, well, I have played F1 Fantasy over the last couple of years, done fairly well in it actually, even better than FPL. But yeah, in terms of other football ones apart from Sky, nope. Target points this game week, enough to get a good green arrow. That's pretty much it. It could be a low scoring week, but as long as I get a green arrow, it's all good. Good to see you, Lager, as always. I think current Henry would outperform any of the current Arsenal attackers. Oh, right, yeah. You might be right about that. I wish Henry was in this Arsenal team. I mean, I'd be very confident of winning the league if that was the case. Thanks for the stream. Have a great day ahead. Likewise, Chase, and also to Alex ND. Sky Fantasy Football was awful. That was actually my first fantasy game, though. Someone introduced me to it. A friend of mine. I was on holiday. I remember that. I captained Salah when he faced Arsenal. Got a lot of points. Yay. Yeah, good times, I guess. There were some good things about it, though. I liked elements of the tier system with the passing, tackles, and stuff like that, because it made every transfer more difficult, which might lead to overthinking, but it made DMs and centre-backs more viable than they would be in FPL. Actually, 100,000 people signed up to EFL in September, so maybe about 150,000 now. Yeah, still good, though, to be top 1k. Yeah, I would have been surprised if it was 2 million, to be fair. Thanks for your help, as always. Good luck, everyone. Thank you, Keith, and thank you, Richard Millichip. I wish you all the best of luck. Enjoy the football. That's the most important thing. Let's see if we can get some good green arrows this week, but I'll see you very soon for more FPL and Use Fantasy content. I'll see you in the next reaction stream and also for UCL Fantasy content in Matchday 7.